Chapter 542. To be honest, the Great Tao Furnace itself was not a particularly difficult divine ability. One sentence, using heaven and earth as a furnace, explained the mystery of the Great Tao Furnace. His strength lay in the fact that the runes of the Great Tao were imprinted on it, allowing it to have unimaginable abilities. The runes of the Great Tao were a power that far exceeded the primordial world. It was normal for Kun Peng to be obsessed with it. However, Feng Zichen did not want to pass it to him. That was a rune of the Great Tao. It was even more noble than an innate spirit treasure. If Kun Peng could comprehend the mystery of it, his cultivation would definitely improve greatly. Therefore, why should he pass it to Kun Peng? He did not have a good relationship with Kun Peng. Wasn't this raising a tiger? Fellow Taoist Zichen, Poor Wei can swear that if you lend the Great Tao Furnace to Poor Wei to take a look, Poor Wei will form an alliance with you in the future and advance and retreat together. Seeing Feng Zichen's expression, Kun Peng guessed his thoughts. He was afraid that he would refuse, so he hurriedly promised. Alliance. Hearing this, Feng Zichen's heart skipped a beat. This method was not bad. Although he did not have any great enemies now, Di Jun and Tai Yi would return one day. If he made more allies now, it would be much easier to deal with them in the future. Moreover, the true mystery of the Great Tao Furnace, it was not a rune of the Great Tao, but the mark of the Chaos Demon God on it. Without the mark of the Chaos Demon God, no matter how powerful the Great Tao Furnace was, there would always be a limit. It could not reach the level of refining everything. It might not even be able to transcend the scope of the heavenly Tao. With this thought in mind, Feng Zichen spoke. Fellow Taoist Kun Peng, I hope you remember what you said today. As he spoke, he passed on all the mysteries of the Great Tao Furnace to Patriarch Kun Peng. However, the mark of the demon god on it was hidden by him. It was no wonder that Feng Zichen was careful. In fact, the imprints of the 3,000 chaos demon gods were his real foundation, and he couldn't expose them easily. Thank you, fellow Taoist. This is He Tu and Luo Shu. Please keep it well, fellow Taoist. After obtaining the Great Tao Furnace, Patriarch Kunpeng did not go back on his word. He directly took out the He Tu and Luo Shu and handed it to Feng Zichen. Fellow Kunpeng, now that this matter is over, Poor Wei will take my leave. After cupping his hands towards the rock ancestor, Feng Zichen directly turned around and left. This time, he was at a disadvantage. In truth, exchanging the Great Tao Furnace for the He Tu and the Book of the Luo was not a loss no matter how one looked at it. In fact, it could even be said to be a great bargain. However, the premise of all this was based on the fact that He Tu and Luo Shu had fallen into his hands. But now, it was clear that the He Tu and the inscription of the Luo were destined to be Fushi's. In other words, he had spent so much effort, but it was all for Fushi. How could Feng Zichen not be angry? But he had to do it. If someone else took the He Tu and the Book of the Luo from the Kun Peng and gave it to Fushi, it meant that Fushi and the human race would owe that person a favor. A debt of gratitude. That was not a good thing. Who knew how much benefits that person would take from the human race with this favor? So, for the human race. Even if he suffered a little loss. Feng Zichen had no choice but to do it. An expert from the primordial era? After taking a deep look at the bottom of the northernmost sea, Feng Zichen turned around and left. Those who could live from the primordial era to the present day were not simple people. The older they were, the stronger they were. In the primordial era, this was not a joke. This was true. If they were not strong enough, how could they live to the present day? Sigh. How troublesome. Just as Feng Zichen wanted to give the He Tu and the Book of the Luo to Fushi, he encountered trouble again. Who could he find to give it to? One had to know. Giving the He Tu and the Book of the Luo to Fushi was also a matter of great merit. This matter could not be taken advantage of by outsiders. However, Feng Zichen really did not have a suitable candidate. No, he did not have a candidate at all. His 3 disciples were still nowhere to be found. His main team was now trapped in the small primordial world. As a result, he did not have any available manpower under him. It seems that I have to find an opportunity to pass down my orthodoxy in the future. Otherwise, I have to do everything myself. Not only is it troublesome, but it will also be a joke if word gets out." At this moment, Feng Zichen could not help but have the thought of taking in a few in-name disciples. 3 personal disciples were more than enough. He could take in a few in-name disciples. Although his learning was messy, they could all be said to be exquisite. It would be a pity if they were lost. It was better to find an opportunity to pass them down. Just as Feng Zichen was looking for a suitable candidate to send the He Tu and the Book of the Luo to Fuxi, a huge problem had arrived. Chengli, Ino, Wang Shu, he quietly arrived at the Emperor's Star. Obviously, he had found out about Ao Shui. Let's not talk about Feng Zichen's trouble. Instead, Fuxi had already finished his apprenticeship. Now, under the leadership of the Yanzi clan, he was gradually familiarizing himself with the affairs of the human race. After that, after a period of sharpening, Yi Zichen decided to give it a try. Fuxi officially took over the supreme power of the human race from the Yanzi clan. At this point, the Yanzi clan abdicated and lived in seclusion in West Kunlun. From then on, the human race entered the era of Fuxi. He created the early words and ended the history of the human races, not to record things. He set the rules of marriage and established the marriage system. He implemented the system of male and female couples and used deerskin as a betrothal gift. He also used the animals he raised as his surname, or plants, residences, and official positions as his surname to prevent random marriages and close relatives from marrying. Thus, the surname of the human race began and continued. He also invented musical instruments such as the zither and the zither, created music, and brought music into the life of humans. He imitated the spider's web and made nets for fishing and hunting, increasing the production capacity of humans. Feng Zichen had done these a long time ago. But times were different. First of all, the civilization of the human race. There was a fault; these things were lost in time. Secondly, the environment of the human race was also very different. When Feng Zichen created these, the population of the human race was not as large as it was now. Moreover, all the human race lived on the coast of the East Sea. With a single order from him, these things could be quickly implemented throughout the entire race. But now, the human race had countless clansmen, and they were scattered all over the world. It could be said that they were all over the primordial world. How difficult would it be for a government decree to be passed through the entire clan? Fuxi was running around for this. He was the work of educating the human race. During his reign, he made the human race wise and polite. This was a supreme merit, so he was called the ancestor of humanity. On this day, Fuxi looked up at the clouds in the sky, the rain and snow, the thunder and lightning. He looked at the strong winds on the ground, the fog rising, and the birds and beasts. He seemed to have comprehended something. However, he felt that there was always a layer separating him, preventing him from having a complete epiphany. While feeling frustrated, Fuxi walked out, intending to go out and relax. Not long after, he arrived at the bank of the Luo River. But under the Luo River, the dragon horse that had been waiting for a long time. After sensing Fuxi's aura, it immediately carried the He Tu and Luo Shu and floated to the surface of the water. Then, just like the legend, Fuxi looked at the He Tu and Luo Shu and created the Khanate 8 trigrams. He used this to summarize the laws of everything in the world, so that everyone could use this to calculate fortune and disaster. As for where did this dragon horse come from? Naturally, it was found by Ao Shui. Feng Zichen really couldn't find a suitable candidate, so he asked Ao Shui to find one. And so, tens of thousands of years passed. Fuxi's true spirit had already awakened, and his strength had recovered to the realm of Daluo Jinxian's perfection. His rule had also reached its peak. His kindness benefited every human race. Such merit was enough for him to ascend to the position of Heavenly Emperor. However, his merit only came from the human race, not from the 10,000 races. Therefore, Fuxi, the Heavenly Emperor, was the Heavenly Emperor of the human race, not the Heavenly Emperor of the 10,000 races. In other words, with this merit, Fuxi could become the Heavenly Emperor of the human race, but it was not enough to ascend to the holy karma rank. Therefore, Fuxi's next plan was to lead the human army and subdue the 10,000 races to become the true heavenly emperor and ascend to the holy karma rank. In the next tens of thousands of years, Fuxi mobilized the elites of the major tribes and formed an army. They practiced array formations day and night to prepare for the conquest of the 10,000 races. As a master of array formations, Fuxi's ability was recognized by everyone. The array formation that he took out was naturally extraordinary. The primordial river formation. This was the postnatal array formation that he had comprehended from the He Tu and Luo Shu. That's right. It was the postnatal array formation. It could be said to be the number 1 postnatal array formation in the primordial world. This array formation was created by Fuxi according to the postnatal number. The entire array was set up according to the layout of the ancient mountains, rivers, earth, and other things in the primordial world. There were all kinds of things inside. If the heavenly cycle star array was the sun, moon, and stars, then the He Tu and Luo Shu were the geography of mountains and rivers, including the rivers or rivers of the primordial world, the ocean, the sky, birds, beasts, fish, and insects, evolving the changes of the ancient primordial world. Moreover, the even more wonderful part of this array was that one could not tell the passage of time while in it. One could see the snow-capped mountains turning into oceans, and the vast seas turning into mulberry fields. The illusions on the river diagram were born and died in an instant. It was as if hundreds of millions of years had passed, and it was also as if countless tribulations had passed. Hence its name, the primordial river diagram. With such an ability, the power of the primordial river formation could be imagined. Moreover, as a postnatal array, in this special period, it must have received some support from the heavens and earth to increase the power of the array. If not, how could Fuxi let the primordial river formation become a postnatal array? The primordial river was all-encompassing, without restraint, postnatal and postnatal. In other words, the primordial river formation could be a postnatal array or a postnatal array. As for the specifics, it all depended on the situation at the scene. If the human race wanted to attack the 10,000 races, of course, it was impossible for them to attack without a reason. In the name of vengeance, it was vengeance. To be honest, the so-called 10,000 races. In fact, most of them were former demons. During the period of the 3 races, there were only 3 races in the primordial world. They were the scaled race, the bird race, and the beast race. During this period, all the races in the primordial world automatically belonged to the 3 races according to their own characteristics. Thinking about it, with the strength of the 3 races, how could they allow the existence of other races? It was not until the 3 races fell that there was the saying of the 10,000 races in the primordial world. Not long after, the demon race appeared. Anything with a spirit could be a demon. As soon as these words were said, the 10,000 races in the primordial world had all become demons. Of course, Dijun did not accept all races. Only the races that left their names on the demon summoning banner were true demons. However, because of that slogan, the races that were not on the demon summoning banner could also use the banner of the demon race and say that they were demons. No one could refute it. It was just that such demons could not obtain the support of the heavenly courts. However, since they dared to use the banner of the demon race, they could not blame the humans for using this reason to attack them. Who could guarantee? There were no real demons here. Besides, ordinary people really could not tell the difference between real and fake demons. For example, among the 10,000 races in the primordial world, there was a monkey race. This monkey race was also divided into the macaque race, the ape race, the Zhuyan race, and so on. Among them, the Zhuyan race and the macaque race were real demons that lived in the heaven realm. The ape race and the other races were fake demons. Those who had some understanding of the demon race could naturally tell the difference between real and fake. But for normal people, they would only consider the entire monkey race as the demon race. Therefore, according to this calculation, there was nothing wrong with the humans treating the 10,000 races as demons. The movements of the humans. naturally could not be hidden from the 10,000 races in the primordial world. In order to protect themselves, the 10,000 races began to form an alliance. They planned to send an alliance army to attack the human race before the human race was ready to disrupt their deployment. It would be best if they could destroy the human race in one battle. It was a pity. The idea of the 10,000 races was good. But the 10,000 races in the primordial world were not an iron bucket. Among the 10,000 races, there were many who had enmity with each other. So, how could they form an alliance so easily? The various races wrangled with each other and attacked each other, causing the alliance to be unable to succeed for a long time. Until the human race was ready, the 10,000 races did not come up with a specific plan. Then, Fuxi advanced step by step. In just a few thousand years, he had swept through dozens of races. It was also at this time that the 10,000 races in the primordial world panicked. They had no choice but to temporarily put down their enmity with each other and form an alliance to resist the human race. With the combined strength of the 10,000 races, the human race was completely unable to resist. Not long after, the human race began to retreat in defeat. Not only did they lose the newly conquered territory, but they also lost a lot of their original territory. Seeing this, Fuxi knew that he could not defeat them, so he pretended to be weak. On one hand, he led the human race to retreat to the ancestral land, and on the other hand, he sent people to the alliance of 10,000 races to sow discord. The human race was defeated, and the alliance of 10,000 races had no external enemies. The internal problems that had been suppressed for a long time erupted. In addition, Fuxi sent people to sow discord. Not long after, the alliance of 10,000 races disintegrated. After that, the primordial world fell into a chaotic battle between the 10,000 races. When the 10,000 races were almost exhausted, Fuxi led the human army out to clean up the mess. At this time, the 10,000 races had exhausted their strength after many years of war. They were no match for the human race at all and were forced to retreat. When a portion of the primordial races saw this, they directly surrendered to the human race. There was also a portion of the primordial races who insisted on the glory of the primordial world. They formed the Primordial World Alliance and wanted to fight the human race to the death. Hence, the two sides started a long war in the primordial world. While the primordial world was in chaos, the distant primordial world was not very calm either. The Chaos Fiend gods had a new plan. Chapter 543. Outside the gate of liches and demons, a few stalwart figures stood in the chaos, looking at the untainted land from afar. It seems that after so many years, the untainted land has walked out of the shadow brought about by the apocalypse and is gradually returning to peace. In that case, my fellow Taoists, it's time to put the gifts we prepared for the untainted land to use. Suddenly, a demon god said with a smile. Those fellow Taoists have just broken out of the seal, and their cultivation is far from their peak. After being suppressed by the heavenly Tao, their lives in the untainted land must be extremely difficult. We need to give the untainted land a big gift to relieve the pressure on them. As soon as the demon god finished speaking, a few chaos demon gods beside him immediately chimed in. Then they joined forces and took out a huge black ball of light. It was surrounded by violent chaos chi and chaos evil chi that could not be dissipated. It was a special treasure that the chaos demon gods refined with their bodies that were shattered by Panga back then as the main material. It was a combination of the origin of chaos and the origin of evil chi. In the ancient times, the first connate ferocious beasts in the untainted land were derived from it. In this way, the intention of the chaos demon gods was very clear. They wanted to send connate ferocious beasts to the untainted land and start the ferocious beast tribulation again. As soon as they finished speaking, the chaos demon gods attacked the untainted land together. Rumble! Terrifying power erupted, setting off terrifying waves in the great chaos. Boundless ripples were formed as they blasted toward the gate of liches. Clang! In the face of the attack of several chaos demon gods, the gate of liches was broken without any resistance. The defense that condensed all the power of the liches and demons, as well as the seal that Heavenly Dao Hongjun had cast on it, did not have any effect at all. The Chaos Demon Gods were too strong. They were so strong that it was beyond the knowledge of the untainted land creatures. If not for their fear of Pangu, the untainted land would have been destroyed by them. Even though the Gate of Liches was a Khanate cardinal treasure, it was still not as strong as the barrier of heaven and earth. If it was broken, it was broken. The defense of the untainted land was not as good as before. With the current strength of the untainted land, the gate was the door for the Chaos Demon Gods to enter and leave the land freely. Go! The moment the Gate of Lich opened, a Chaos Demon God struck the ball of origin of chaos into the untainted land. Not good. At the same time, Dao Ancestor Hongjun, who was comprehending the Great Dao in the Purple Cloud Palace, was possessed by the Heavenly Dao. He carried Juan-Ti and rushed to the Gate of Magi. Chaos is in trouble. The few sages who were paying attention to the human race sensed the change in the chaos and stopped paying attention to the human race. They all rushed towards the outer space. During this time, the sages naturally discovered the origin of primal chaos. The insight of a sage was extraordinary. He immediately recognized the origin of this item and was about to take it away to prevent it from harming the untainted land. However, before the saints could do anything, the origin of chaos dispersed and flew to the primitive land with strong Khanate malice chi, merging with the earth veins. In that case, if the saint wanted to take away the essence of the chaos, the primordial world would inevitably suffer. However, this did not matter. Compared to the losses brought to the untainted land by the Khanate ferocious beasts derived from the origin of chaos, the untainted land could afford such a temporary loss. However, the Chaos Demon God would not give the sages a chance to destroy the origin of chaos. Before the sages could make up their minds, they started to act in the great chaos. Waves of chaos tides were raised by the Chaos Demon God and rolled towards the Gate of Magi, intending to attack the untainted land. The sages had no choice but to join forces with Dao Ancestor Hongjun to suppress the Gate of Magi personally to prevent the invasion of the Chaos Chi. In this way, the sages and the Heavenly Dao's energy were involved in the chaos by the Chaos Demon God, and there was no extra power to interfere with the untainted land. This was the purpose of the Chaos Demon God. In the untainted land, the sages were simply cheating. Even primordial chaos zenith heaven golden immortals, or even those who were stronger than them, could not defeat them. As long as the sages were there, no matter how many Khanate ferocious beasts the Chaos Demon God sent to the untainted land, they would not be enough to kill. Therefore, in order to ensure the smooth progress of the plan, the Chaos Demon God had to prevent the sages from attacking. With the safety of the untainted land, it was the Chaos Demon God's plan to involve all the sages' energy. If the sages left the untainted land, they would definitely not be a match for the Chaos Demon God. And if the Chaos Demon God entered the untainted land, he would definitely not be a match for the Heavenly Dao. Therefore, the two sides competed with each other across the Gate of Magi. The sudden change naturally alarmed all living beings in the untainted land. At this moment, the human clan and the Khanate alliance, who were planning to fight a decisive battle, also withdrew their troops and waited for the next change. The group of great mediums also had a bad feeling in their hearts. However, no matter how they calculated, they could not find the source of the crisis and could not help but become worried. For a moment, the atmosphere of the untainted land, it became more and more depressing. It was as if a storm was coming. An opportunity. On the Ziwei star, Feng Zichen realized that the human clan's opportunity had come. Although the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts was a huge calamity, it might be an opportunity for the human clan. If the human clan could stand out in this chaos of the ferocious beasts that affected the untainted land, they could even quell the chaos of the ferocious beasts in one fell swoop. Then, the prestige of the human clan would definitely reach a peak in the untainted land. With this, they could justifiably ascend to the position of the main character of heaven and earth. The position of the main character of heaven and earth obtained in this way was the true main character of heaven and earth. and the main character of heaven and earth that was obtained with the help of the heavenly Tao and the schemes of the sages could only be said to be a puppet. Moreover, because of the chaos demon god, the sages and the heavenly Tao's control over the untainted land had fallen to a freezing point. It was a great time to cause trouble. His heart stirred slightly. Feng Zichen had the idea of causing trouble. However, he did not expect that this chaos of the ferocious beasts would be even more rapid and large-scale than he had expected. The scope of its impact and the magnitude of its impact were beyond the expectations of too many people. After the chaos origin merged with the untainted land, the connate murderous aura it carried immediately began to erode the surrounding earth veins and spirit veins. The spirit veins were contaminated by the connate murderous aura, and the acquired chi produced was no longer clear. Instead, it was accompanied by wisps of black murderous aura. If one accidentally touched it, even if they were lucky enough to retain their spiritual intelligence, their vitality would be greatly damaged. Under the influence of the connate murderous aura, it did not take long for the entire untainted land to be filled with murderous aura. The world was gradually filled with murderous aura. The increase in murderous aura would definitely bring about a decrease in spiritual energy. For this reason, the cultivation environment in the world became even more difficult. But this was not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing was that as the murderous aura grew, the demonic path that had disappeared in the untainted land for many years gradually emerged. The current cultivation environment was suitable for the spread of the demonic path. The Taoist path grew and the demonic path disappeared. The demonic path disappeared. It was like a cycle. Many years after the celestial sect of wonders defeated the demonic path had a chance to prosper again. The situation in the untainted land became more and more strange. Time flowed like water. In the blink of an eye, 1,000 years had passed. After 1,000 years of nurturing, the origin of chaos had already given birth to many connate ferocious beasts. Normally speaking, even connate ferocious beasts could not have too much strength when they were just born. However, this batch of chaos demon gods was different. First of all, they had noble origins. They were formed from the remnants of the chaos demon gods. They were born with strong physical bodies, not inferior to Daluo Jingxian. Secondly, when these connate ferocious beasts were nurtured, the demonic path used some unknown method to connect them with the resentment, evil aura, and other negative emotions in the world. This made these connate ferocious beasts even more powerful. Many connate ferocious beasts were born with the cultivation of Daluo Jingxian. Fortunately, the heavenly Tao was fair. If it gave you invincible power, you were destined to lose something. Therefore, these connate ferocious beasts did not have intelligence, regardless of their strength. However, there were exceptions. Among the many connate ferocious beasts, there were always a few exceptions. Among them, there were 4 connate ferocious beasts. While possessing great strength, they also possessed extremely high intelligence. They were Tai, Hun Dun, Xianxia, and Tao Wu. These 4 ferocious beasts were special creatures born from the fusion of the origin of chaos and the negative emotions of the untainted land. They were the embodiment of evil in the world. From the moment they were born, they had the power of a sage-to-be. As the situation in the untainted land became more chaotic, their strength became stronger. There was another point that was especially important. As the embodiment of evil in the world, unless there was no evil in the untainted land, they were immortal existences. There was no way to completely kill them. Even if their bodies and true spirits were completely refined into flying ashes, as long as there was evil in the untainted land, they could be resurrected at any time. This was a monster born from the resentment of all living beings. It was born with the untainted land. Other than not being as powerful as the saints, there was almost no difference. The untainted land's great mediums, as well as the human clan and the connate alliance, were not fools. After seeing the birth of the connate ferocious beasts, they immediately killed them. Even if the 4 great ferocious beasts were born, they were no match for them at all. Other than being shocked by their strength at the beginning, after that, it was easy to kill them. However, at this moment, No one knew that the 4 great ferocious beasts were immortal existences. Otherwise, the crowd would not have killed them, but sealed them when they had just been born and their cultivation was at its weakest. Given the vastness of the untainted land, the number of connate ferocious beasts could be said to be endless. In order to prevent the connate ferocious beasts from wreaking havoc in the untainted land, the human tribe and the connate alliance had no choice but to set aside their enmity and join forces to suppress the connate ferocious beasts. Even the great adepts came out to help from time to time. However, this method was still fine in the early stages. However, as the number of Xianxia realm ferocious beasts increased, the human race and the Xianxia realm alliance gradually became overwhelmed. It was also at this time that the people of the demonic path gradually became active. They came forward to help the Xianxia realm vicious beasts and obstructed the encirclement plan of the humans and the Xianxia alliance. In fact, they even used the same trick again. The high-level officials of both sides instigated the relationship between the two sides, intending to start another war. In the early stages, the demonic path took advantage of the pervasive baleful aura and the restless hearts of the people to succeed. The human race and the innate alliance did have some friction because of this. Several wars broke out and there were even signs of a complete falling out. It was only when Fuxi discovered that something was wrong that he took advantage of the meeting between the two sides. He used the Xiantian 8 trigrams to deduce the heavenly secrets and forcefully pulled out several demonic Dao spies from the two sides. Only then was the relationship between the two sides restored. However, this move by the demonic path, it could be said that he had offended both sides. In the future, when eliminating the Xiantian realm vicious beasts, both sides also eliminated the demonic path. It was at this time that all kinds of Dao techniques and supernatural powers against the demonic path were developed. However, the human race and the Xiantian alliance, which were already weak, were even more powerless against the demonic path in addition to dealing with the Xiantian realm vicious beasts. As a result, the Xiantian realm vicious beasts gradually showed signs of overflowing. However, soon, the human race and the Xiantian alliance were freed up. That was because the third-generation disciples of the Xian sect had arrived. The demonic path had created chaos in the primordial world, so the disciples of the Xian sect naturally had to take action to subdue the demons to defend the dignity of the Xian sect. Under the leadership of the 9 heavens celestial lord Xianqing, the disciples of the 3 sects and the disciples of the Xian sect's great magicians all came out to kill the people of the demonic path. Even the Haotian Jade Pool also sent an army from the heavenly court to quell the chaos in the primordial world. All the forces took action together to suppress the demonic path and the Xiantian realm vicious beasts. The primordial world gradually showed signs of peace. However, at this moment, a sudden change completely reversed the situation of the primordial world. The situation that the major forces of the primordial world had created with great difficulty all turned into flowing water overnight. The chaos of the Xiantian realm vicious beasts had completely erupted. All living beings were in danger. And this shocking change, it had something to do with the great magicians. Almost at the same time, most of the great magicians in the primordial world, except for a few, were attacked by the chaos demon gods. Back then, the chaos demon gods broke out of the seal and after a big battle with everyone, they all went to the great wide world. However, only the main bodies of the chaos demon gods went to the great wide world. A part of their true spirits chose to stay in the primordial world and sneak into the blessed enclave, waiting for an opportunity to take action. No one knew what method those chaos demon gods had used to hide in their Taoist rites in such an arrogant manner without being detected by the powerful masters of divine arts. The chaos demon gods had always wanted to possess the great magicians to replace their status and lurk in the primordial world to plan something big. However, they had no chance, so they did not take action for a long time. Seizing the body of a great divine ability was not a simple matter. The most troublesome thing was not the resistance of the great magicians, but how to hide from the heavenly way. The heavenly way was monitoring the primordial world all the time, especially the great magicians who could destroy the stability of heaven and earth. They were the key targets of the heavenly way's surveillance. Therefore, Every great magician could not escape the perception of the heavenly way when something happened to him. It was for this reason that the chaos demon gods did not dare to attack the great magicians easily. If they were discovered by the heavenly way before they could be proud of themselves after successfully possessing the great magicians, they would be killed. What a loss that would be! Therefore, the chaos demon gods had to bear with it for the time being and secretly spy on the great magicians, waiting for an opportunity. Chapter 544. Until now, their chance had finally come. Because of the changes in the chaos outside the world, the heavenly Tao had no time to look at the untainted world, which gave the chaos demon gods a chance. They took advantage of the fact that the great masters were distracted to suppress the connate ferocious beasts and suddenly attacked, trying to devour their true spirits and replace them. Of course, those great masters had been able to dominate the untainted world for so many years, so they were not to be trifled with. How could they be so easily defeated by the chaos demon gods? After a short period of shock, they immediately came back to their senses and fought with the chaos demon gods. Although the original chaos demon gods were extremely powerful, after being weakened several times, they did not have much strength left and were on par with the great masters. In addition, the battlefield took place in the bodies of the great masters, so they had the home advantage. The remnant spirits of the chaos demon gods were in an away battle, so they did not have the advantage and were even at a disadvantage. Therefore, the chaos demon gods might not be able to successfully possess the great masters. Perhaps, the remnant spirits of the chaos demon gods would be devoured by the great masters and become resources for them to reach a higher realm. Therefore, in the end, it was hard to say who would succeed who. However, there was one thing that was certain. After the battle between the chaos demon gods and the great masters was over, no matter who won the final victory, a large number of primordial chaos experts would emerge in the untainted world. If the chaos demon gods won, their strength would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. There was no doubt about that. If the great masters won, they would definitely get the origin of the chaos demon gods, and their cultivation would naturally improve by leaps and bounds. Not long after, primordial chaos Daluo Xianxia would be in the untainted world. It would no longer be as scarce as before. At that time, it would be the real great world. In the untainted world, the primordial chaos sect master would appear frequently and compete between heaven and earth. Even the saints would find it difficult to hide their brilliance. At that time, it would be difficult for the saints to dominate the untainted world. However, it was also because of this that the great masters focused all their energy on fighting with the chaos demon gods. They had no extra energy to deal with the connate ferocious beasts. As a result, in the untainted land, the primordial ferocious beasts became more and more powerful, and the dark sect became more and more arrogant. The human tribe and the primordial alliance gradually lost control of the situation and were suppressed by both sides. Even the third-generation disciples of the celestial sect of wonders had no choice but to retreat to the ancestral courts of the three sects under the suppression of the second-generation disciples of the devil sect. It wasn't that the third-generation disciples of the Xian sect weren't strong enough, but that the demon gate didn't abide by the rules and sent out the older generation to bully the younger generation of the Xian sect. It would be a miracle if the disciples of the celestial sect of wonders could beat him. In this way, the chaos of the connate ferocious beasts and the chaos of the demon sect had completely erupted. The primordial world had entered a situation where the demonic Tao was rising and the Tao was disappearing. Just as the situation in the great desolate Aeon turned increasingly dangerous, the heaven realm moved. Heavenly Emperor Hao Tian, Great Emperor Zi Wei, North Star Emperor Zichen Clan, and Great Emperor Lei Zhe of the South Pole. A celestial emperor and 3 emperors, a total of 4 half-step primordial chaos cultivators, had come down to the primeval world to suppress the connate ferocious beasts and the demon sect. The heavenly realm was light and agile, so it was located high up in the sky and was the closest to the heavenly Tao. Therefore, in the great chaos of the great desolate Aeon, the heaven realm could remain calm as usual and not be affected by the turmoil. It was also because of this that the heaven realm could draw out most of its power to suppress the chaos in the great desolate Aeon. On the other hand, the Netherworld realm was the opposite. The Netherworld realm was located in the deepest part of the Great Desolate Aeon. Below him was the bottomless land of the 9 Nether. No one knew how many secrets were buried under the 9 underworlds. But one thing was certain, there was definitely the remains of the Chaos Demon God in there. Even as powerful as the Great Desolate Aeon was, it was impossible to completely transform the remains of the Chaos Demon God. Therefore, the remains of the Chaos Demon God that had not been transformed by the origin of the Great Desolate Aeon were all worthless. They were all sunk into the land of the ultimate and disposed of as waste. Those that were still valuable sank into the 9 underworlds and used the power of time to slowly refine them to strengthen the origin of the Great Desolate Aeon. Originally, this was a perfect plan. But as the true spirit of the Chaos Demon God broke the seal, it became a huge pit. Almost at the same time, dozens of Chaos Demon Gods rushed out of the 9 underworlds and attacked the Netherworld realm. If Hoodoo had not activated the 6 paths of reincarnation disc in time to suppress these Chaos Demon Gods, the Netherworld realm would have changed hands today. However, it was still a little difficult to suppress these Chaos Demon Gods with the 6 paths of reincarnation disc. It was not that these Chaos Demon Gods were too strong, nor was it that the 6 paths of reincarnation disc was too weak. It was that the 6 paths of reincarnation disc had to bear too much pressure. As the treasure of reincarnation of the Great Desolate Aeon, the 6 paths of reincarnation disc was operating all the time to maintain the reincarnation of all living beings in the Great Desolate Aeon. Given the size of the Great Desolate Aeon, how many living beings had to be reincarnated every day? And the reincarnation of living beings required power. The more living beings there were, the more power they needed. Usually, in order to maintain the reincarnation of the entire Great Desolate Aeon, it was already a big burden for the 6 paths of reincarnation disc. It was the same even if it was a treasure of chaos. In particular, with the outbreak of the Khanate ferocious beasts and the chaos of the demon sect, more living beings died in the Great Desolate Aeon. The 6 paths of reincarnation disc was facing more and more pressure, and it had to use more power to maintain the normal operation of reincarnation. Under such circumstances, it still had to suppress dozens of powerful Chaos Demon Gods. Even with Hoodoo's help, it gradually became more and more powerless. For this reason, Hoodoo's incarnation, Hood Empress, Fengdu Ghost Emperor, and Nether River Patriarch had to work together to mobilize the power of the origin of the Netherworld realm to help Hoodoo suppress the Chaos Demon Gods. However, just as they were in a stalemate with the Chaos Demon Gods, a large number of strange ferocious beasts suddenly surged out of the 9 underworlds and attacked the Netherworld realm. They were extremely powerful, and they did not have a fixed shape. Like souls, they could change their shape at will and were good at attacking the primordial spirit. Ordinary means could not hurt them at all. Moreover, among them, Tai Jinxian ferocious beasts were the most numerous, but there were also Daluo Jinxian beasts and Sage-to-be ferocious beasts. Fortunately, after the Great Witch Demon War, Ancestral Witch Xianming led the surviving members of the witch tribe to the Netherworld realm to seek refuge with Hutu. It was because of this that he was able to take action in time when the ferocious beasts attacked the Netherworld realm. He led the remaining masters of the witch tribe to stop these ferocious beasts outside the Netherworld realm. Otherwise, when the higher-ups of the Netherworld realm were unable to take action collectively, a large number of powerful ferocious beasts suddenly attacked the Netherworld realm, which would inevitably bring a huge disaster to it. However, although the Netherworld realm blocked this disaster, it did not have the extra strength to support the untainted land. The only thing they could do was to try their best to guard the Netherworld realm and prevent these powerful ferocious beasts from spreading to the untainted land, so as not to add fuel to the fire of the untainted land that was in crisis. Just as Feng Zichen and the others descended to the lower world, in the depths of the void, a pool emitting colorful light quietly revealed its traces. The void silently split open, and this colorful sacred pool appeared in the untainted land. In an instant, the wind and clouds between heaven and earth changed. Boundless rainbow-colored mist converged towards the divine pool. Like boiling water, the water in the pool emitted a whirring sound. A budding lotus flower slowly appeared in the middle of the pool. Immediately, the Khanate Taoist rhyme filled the air, and endless rules appeared and wrapped around it. Obviously, this mysterious lotus flower was a Khanate item, and it was a peerless item. Otherwise, it would not have such an extraordinary phenomenon. This mysterious lotus was enveloped by seven-colored light. Its entire body emitted a dreamlike luster. It gave off an extremely illusory feeling, as if it didn't really exist. However, it was really beautiful. With just a glance, one could unconsciously sink into it. In the dream, one would experience the various forms of life and comprehend the wonders of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. They would never wake up again, and they would die silently. Demonic. This was an extremely demonic lotus flower. It was not a divine lotus, but a demonic lotus. A complete demonic lotus, a Khanate demonic lotus. Walala, with the appearance of the Khanate demonic lotus, the water in the sacred pool disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, becoming nutrients for the demonic lotus growth. At the same time, the colorful mist from heaven and earth also poured into the Khanate demonic lotus to accelerate its growth. With the help of these two forces, it did not take long for the Khanate demonic lotus to fully mature and slowly bloom. The huge flower bud had 9 petals, and it slowly bloomed in the surroundings. Immediately, an intoxicating phenomenon, together with an extremely dreamy mist, spread in all directions. It was also at this moment that the Khanate demonic lotus fully bloomed. In the center of the flower bud, a handsome man in colorful clothes and holding a divine mirror gradually appeared on the platform. He was extremely beautiful, and there was not a single flaw on his body. He was like the most perfect piece of art in the world. His temperament was complex and changeable. Sometimes he was like a god, sometimes a demon, and sometimes a ghost. He was constantly changing. However, each of his temperaments gave people a feeling of closeness, and people could not help but believe in him. Moreover, if one took a closer look, they would discover that his appearance and figure were not the same. Just like his temperament, his appearance and figure were also changing all the time. There was no fixed form. This was not a god, but a demon. A natural demon. My name is the demonic heart. I have no shape, no form, no life, and no death. I was born with the 7 emotions and 6 desires, and I exist in the hearts of all living beings. The 7 emotions are eternal, and the 6 desires are not known. I am immortal. Suddenly, the devil stood up and announced his existence to the primeval world. Wung wung wung. Heaven and earth hummed loudly as if celebrating the birth of a new Khanate godfiend. At the same time, the chi of 7 emotions and 6 desires in the world seemed to have found its master, and it excitedly gathered toward the demonic heart to increase its strength. Rumble. In the depths of the void, in the mysterious unknown place, where the long river of fate was, there was another change with the birth of the demonic heart. Among the countless tributaries of fate, one of the huge but incomparably pitch-black tributaries suddenly branched out and flowed toward an unknown place. That huge pitch-black tributary represented the destiny of the demonic sect. The small tributaries that branched out from his body represented the destiny of the demonic heart. This meant that heaven and earth recognized the identity of the demonic heart. A wisp of the destiny that belonged to the demonic sect was given to the demonic heart. At this point, the demonic heart had obtained the destiny of the demonic sect and became the overlord of the demonic path in one fell swoop. Yes, an overlord of the demonic path who came from outside the demonic sect and did not belong to the demonic sect. Who is it? Sensing that the destiny of the demonic sect was damaged, the giants of the demonic sect were naturally furious. They all sent out their divine senses to search for the madman who dared to split the destiny of the demonic sect. But how could they find him? The demonic heart was invisible and formless, and it existed in the hearts of all living beings. Unless one severed all 7 emotions and extinguished all 6 desires, no one could escape the parasitism of the demonic heart. With just a thought, he could hide in the hearts of all living beings, and no one would be able to detect his traces. Let's go! Before the divine senses of the demonic path giants swept over, The demonic heart smiled faintly and then disappeared on the spot without a trace. No matter how the demonic path giants calculated, other than the name of the demonic heart, there was no other information, let alone his whereabouts. Demonic heart? I'll remember you. How dare you plunder the destiny of the demonic sect? No one in this world can save you. After leaving behind a few harsh words, the divine senses of the demonic path giants slowly retreated. The aura of the world devastator Taoist? Interesting. I was worried about not being able to find your whereabouts. I didn't expect you to show up on your own accord. It's really fate. You deserve to die. After the divine senses of the demonic path giants left, the voids suddenly distorted, and the figure of the demonic heart appeared again. However, what was different from before was that his face was filled with a strange smile. That was because he had discovered the aura of a long-lost enemy. The Black Lotus of Destruction, World Devastator Taoist. With the outbreak of the demonic calamity in the primordial world, Feng Zichen's old enemy, the World Devastator Taoist, finally couldn't help but appear. That's right. The demonic heart was Feng Zichen's incarnation. With the aura of 7 emotions and 6 desires, coupled with the Khanate creation origin, he condensed the Khanate God-Fiend incarnation. The incarnation of the demonic heart was an incarnation that Feng Zichen had condensed specifically to deal with the Western sect. On the eve of the demon race's massacre, he had sent the pool of 7 emotions and 6 desires that had nurtured the demonic heart incarnation into the depths of the void, quietly waiting for the opportunity to appear. Unexpectedly, as the situation of the demonic path's expansion gradually formed, the demonic heart incarnation actually appeared in advance due to the destiny of the demonic path and became the overlord of the demonic path. The matter of opportunity, it was really unfathomable. Since the demonic heart was Feng Zichen's incarnation, then that divine mirror was naturally the supreme grade Khanate spirit treasure, the mortal mirror. And that 9th grade Khanate demon lotus was the Khanate spirit treasure given to the demonic heart by heaven and earth. It was the superior grade Khanate spirit treasure, the 9th grade black lotus of the demonic heart. As for the demonic heart's rainbow cloud robe. Chapter 545. It was also a Khanate spirit treasure. It was called the 7 emotions heavenly robe. It was dreamlike and illusory. It was between reality and illusion. It could ignore most of the divine powers of the primordial world. It was a superior grade Khanate spirit treasure that contained 36 Khanate divine seals. A Khanate God-Fiend. Of course, it couldn't be shabby when it was born, especially for a mental demon that was born with great luck. It couldn't be shabby when it was born. Heaven and earth would naturally prepare a good set of belongings for it so that it wouldn't have to live in poverty. However, even with so many treasures, the cultivation level of the mental demon wasn't very strong. It was only at the early stage of Daluo Jingxian. Moreover, it was extremely difficult for it to increase its cultivation level. The heavenly Tao was fair. Since the mental demon was born with the ability to be almost immortal, it naturally had shortcomings in other aspects. This shortcoming was that it couldn't increase its cultivation level through normal cultivation methods. In other words, the mental demon couldn't breathe spirit qi. What it could absorb was only the qi of 7 emotions and 6 desires that came from the hearts of all living beings. All the methods of the mental demon, be it dermic powers or divine powers, relied on the qi of 7 emotions and 6 desires. This was the foundation of his existence. The qi of 7 emotions and 6 desires was as important to the mental demon as spirit qi was to cultivators. Moreover, the qi of 7 emotions and 6 desires was only the source of the mental demon's power. It couldn't increase its cultivation level. If it wanted to break through, it could only devour other cultivators so that it could occupy their Tao fruits and refine their cultivation as nourishment to strengthen itself. For example, if the mental demon occupied the Tao heart of a sage-to-be mighty figure, it could immediately become a sage-to-be mighty figure. The mental demon's Tao was the Tao of plunder. Plunder the Tao of all living beings to form its own Tao. Compared to the demonic sect's Tao, the mental demon's Tao was the true demonic Tao. It was more like a demon than the demonic sect cultivators. harming heaven and earth to nourish itself. This was the supreme true demon. World Devastator Taoist? He dares to enter the primordial world at this time? This is the will of heaven. If he doesn't face the tribulation, who will? Somewhere in the primordial world. After learning that the World Devastator Taoist had reappeared from the incarnation of the mental demon, Feng Zichen immediately sent Lei Zhe's incarnation of the South Pole Emperor to search for him so that he could face the tribulation. As for why Lei Zhe's incarnation? Of course, it was because there was a huge karma between him and the World Devastator Taoist. His vow to kill the World Devastator Taoist was still ringing in his ears. It was only by relying on such karma that Feng Zichen was able to kill the symbol of providence of the demonic sects in this era where the demonic sects were flourishing. Otherwise, how could the Black Lotus of Destruction, the treasure of destiny of the Dark Sect, be so easy to kill? One had to know that Tianming was in the Demon Gate, not the Profound Gate. If not for the fact that the World Devastator Taoist had been too greedy and forcefully devoured the vitality of the 9 Thunder Lords of the Thunder Lake, Feng Zichen would not have been able to find the opportunity to attack him now. Killing an innate God-fiend's embryo was a great taboo in the world, but World Devastator Taoist had killed 9 of them in a row. He could only say that this was the will of the heavens. The World Devastator Taoist should have died. As for his previous plan of leaving the World Devastator Taoist to the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens, he naturally dropped it. An oath. It was better to do it himself. Did Feng Zichen want to kill World Devastator Taoist? Of course, he wanted to, even in his dreams. Unfortunately, he really could not find any traces of World Devastator Taoist. Thus, he had no choice but to leave the mission of killing World Devastator Taoist to the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens. However, since World Devastator Taoist had taken the initiative to appear now, Feng Zichen did not mind killing him along the way, in order to solve a problem in his heart that had yet to be solved. North of the primordial world, at a place where connate ferocious beasts gathered, World Devastator Taoist suddenly appeared and used a demonic technique to tame all the connate ferocious beasts. After that, he originally wanted to drive these connate ferocious beasts to where the human race was and wreak havoc to take revenge for being severely injured by Feng Zichen several times back then. However, the moment he turned to leave, the surrounding space suddenly changed. Lightning. Endless lightning. It surged out of the void like seawater and instantly drowned the area he was in, forming a huge sea of lightning around him. At the same time, with the formation of this sea of lightning, all of World Devastator Taoist's connections to the outside world were cut off. Time and space also froze at this moment. In other words, no matter how long he had been in this sea of lightning, the time and space in the outside world were not affected at all. It was still maintained at the moment when World Devastator Taoist turned around. This is Lu Eyes. It's the South Pole Great Emperor of the Heavenly Court. After looking around for a while, World Devastator Taoist found his surroundings more and more familiar. After carefully recalling for a moment, he remembered that this sea of lightning was exactly the same as the layout of the Lu Eyes in the past. This time, he understood everything. He knew that the one who trapped him here was one of the 4 heavenly deities of the Heavenly Court, the South Pole Longevity Emperor, because only the connate Tao Master who was born in the Lu Eyes could create such a realistic scene in the Lu Eyes, the Lu Eyes Great Emperor of the South Pole. World Devastator Taoist of the demonic sect greets the Emperor. May I know why the Emperor is blocking my path? World Devastator Taoist suppressed the dissatisfaction in his heart and bowed respectfully. After knowing the identity of the person who came, he clearly understood one thing. That was, he was no match for the other party no matter what. If they really fought, not to mention him, even the current leader of the demonic sect would not be the other party's match. In the entire demonic sect, unless demon ancestor Luo Ho appeared, no one would be a match for the 4 heavenly deities in a one-on-one fight. After all, they were the 4 heavenly deities. They were the strongest 4 karmic ranks below the sage position. With the support of the power of their ranks, they could even erupt with power comparable to a sage. Facing such a powerful existence, how could World Devastator Taoist, who had just entered the Sage-to-be realm, resist? The difference in ranks was simply too great. Therefore, no matter how dissatisfied World Devastator Taoist was with Feng Zichen blocking his path, he did not dare to show it on his face. He was afraid that he would anger the other party and bring about a fatal disaster. Of course, this was mainly because he knew that among the 4 heavenly deities, other than the North Star Emperor, the other 3 heavenly deities had nothing to do with the mystic sect. If the other party was the heavenly Emperor Haoyan, World Devastator Taoist would have resisted long ago. If the other party was not from the mystic sect, it meant that there was no conflict between them and they could become allies. Why did I stop you? Don't you know anything about this, World Devastator Taoist? There was a distortion in the void as Feng Zichen stepped out and stood in front of World Devastator Taoist, speaking coldly. If I remember correctly, this is the first time I've met the Emperor. I wonder why the Emperor is so hostile to me. Could it be that wait. Could it be? At this point, World Devastator Taoist suddenly thought of something and frowned. Could it be that the Emperor is here because of the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens? In World Devastator Taoist's memory, the only thing that was related to the Thunderlock was when he devoured the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens. But this, what did it have to do with the South Pole Emperor? Although both sides were innate gods born from the Lesia, it was clear that they weren't born at the same time. Otherwise, the South Pole Great Emperor's fate would have been the same as the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens, devoured by World Devastator Taoist. However, this was not the case in the present world. This meant that the South Pole Great Emperor was a new Thunder Lock born after the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens died. If that was the case, the 2 parties should not have crossed paths. The South Pole Great Emperor had no reason to avenge him. On the contrary, he should be grateful to World Devastator Taoist. If World Devastator Taoist had not devoured the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens, it would not have been easy for the South Pole Great Emperor to control the Thunder Lock alone. At the very least, he would have to fight the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens first. That's right. I'm here for this. Feng Zichen nodded and continued. Since you've figured it out, do you want to end your own life? Or do you want me to send you on your way? To him, it did not matter if World Devastator Taoist understood the reason. What was important was that he wanted World Devastator Taoist dead. Emperor, although you and the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens are both from the Thunderlock, you don't know each other. Why do you want to avenge them? If you kill me, you'll avenge them, but you'll also offend the entire demon sect. It's not worth it. I hope you'll reconsider. The World Devastator Taoist's expression completely changed when he heard that. He quickly explained the drawbacks of killing him to Feng Zichen in a slightly hurried tone. He wanted to use the demon sect's power to pressure Feng Zichen and force him to change his mind. World Devastator Taoist was not joking. Killing him, he would really offend the entire demon sect. Although the demon sect had 2 connate cardinal treasures, the God-slaying spear and the 4 immortal slaying swords, their killing intent was too strong. However, the murderous aura of these 2 connate cardinal treasures was so strong that they could not suppress the light from Providence. Demon Ancestor Ra had no choice but to use the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction to suppress the demon sect's providence. And World Devastator Taoist was formed from the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction. Killing him would shake the foundation of the demon sect. How could the demon sect not be angry? It would not be an exaggeration to say that they would offend the entire demon sect. However, since Feng Zichen wanted to kill World Devastator Taoist, why would he care about that? The demon sect could not scare him. The mystic sect was more like it. Since World Devastator Taoist is unwilling to end his own life, I'll spend some effort to personally send you on your last journey. With a smile, Feng Zichen pointed downwards. The entire sea of lightning instantly boiled and gradually gathered towards World Devastator Taoist, forming a huge thunder Tao furnace to refine him to death. That's right. I have something to tell you. After the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens perished, the Thunderlocks will gathered their remaining power and was reborn. It can be said that I inherited everything from the Thunder Lord of the 9 Heavens, including their karma. Therefore, it's not wrong for you to die in my hands. Feng Zichen explained as he looked at World Devastator Taoist, who was struggling in the Thunder Dao furnace. Originally, he did not need to explain. It was good to let World Devastator Taoist be a confused ghost. However, on second thought, if he did not have a suitable reason to kill World Devastator Taoist, it was hard to guarantee that others would not recklessly guess his true identity. After all, Thunderlock's incarnation was too mysterious. It had never appeared in the primordial world before. It was as if it had appeared out of thin air. It would be strange if no one guessed his true identity. If by chance someone guessed his true identity, then there would be a lot of fun. Therefore, Feng Zichen decided to take advantage of this opportunity to tell a half-truth about his fabricated background. At the very least, it could also dispel some people's suspicions, to reduce the risk of his true identity being exposed. I am the symbol of the demon sect. If you kill me, the demon ancestor will not let you off. Thunderlock, you will definitely be buried with me. Inside the Thunder Dao furnace, World Devastator Taoist was in complete despair after hearing Feng Zichen's words. He could not help but roar loudly. He knew that he was finished. There was no hope of survival. In order to end the karma inherited from the Thunder Lord of the Ninth Heaven, even if he did not hesitate to offend the demon sect, the other party would definitely kill him. After all, compared to his own Dao path. So what if he offended the entire demon sect? Then there's no need for you to worry, World Devastator Taoist. You won't be able to see it anyway. After taking one last look at World Devastator Taoist, Feng Zichen used the authority of the South Pole Emperor to mobilize the mighty power of heaven and earth to raise the power of the Thunder Dao furnace to the level of primordial chaos. As a result, World Devastator Taoist was even less of a match. Not long after, he was killed by Feng Zichen. How could a mere early-stage quasi-saint resist the attack of a primordial chaos? The outcome was already decided. World Devastator Taoist was bound to die. From the beginning to the end, Feng Zichen did not use any other divine abilities. He only used some of the power that belonged to the South Pole Emperor and easily killed World Devastator Taoist. Firstly, he was cautious. He was worried that others would be able to see the relationship between his clones through clues. Secondly, there was no need at all. At this point, the gap between him and World Devastator Taoist was already big enough. It could be said that one was in the sky and the other was on the ground. Back then, he had needed to be 120% focused to deal with World Devastator Taoist. Now, he could destroy him with a flip of his hand. There was really no need to invest too much effort. After killing World Devastator Taoist, Feng Zichen did not put away the Thunder Dao furnace. Instead, he continued to use his power to refine something. Just like that, 49 days later, Feng Zichen put away the Thunder Dao furnace. A 12th grade Black Lotus flew out and landed in his hand. It was World Devastator Taoist's original body. It was the top supreme grade Khanate spirit treasure of the primordial world, the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction. You brought this upon yourself. What a pity for World Devastator Taoist's top grade talent. Looking at the 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction in his hand, Feng Zichen sighed regretfully. One had to know that in terms of background, there were very few people in the primordial world who could surpass World Devastator Taoist other than the three pure ones, who were of the Pangu lineage. The 12th grade Black Lotus of Destruction could be said to be a top-grade origin in the primordial world. It had the possibility of becoming a primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, just like great immortal Yang Mei and Saint Zhuan-Ti. Unfortunately, World Devastator Taoist was too capable. He had wasted his top-grade talent in the primordial world. Chapter 546. The World Devastator Taoist had spent his entire life. Perhaps it was to transform or to cultivate. He had devoured countless Khanate spiritual items. Among them, there were many that were more precious than the Ninth Heaven Thunder Lord. If not for that, the World Devastator Taoist would not have been able to reach the quasi-saint realms so quickly. One had to know that he had been severely injured by Feng Zichen several times, causing his origin source to be greatly damaged. Under normal circumstances, it would be extremely difficult for him to maintain his current strength, let alone improve his cultivation level. However, the reality was that not only did the World Devastator Taoist's strength not deteriorate, but it also improved. He broke through from the Daluo Jingxian realm to the Quasi-Saint realm. Clearly, he had borrowed external strength. He had devoured many connate spiritual items to make up for his missing origin source. Only this method could heal the World Devastator Taoist's injuries in a short period of time and allow his cultivation level to improve by leaps and bounds. However, how could connate spiritual items be so easy to devour? Every connate spiritual item was born from heaven and earth. They had great luck and great creation. Although they were not as good as connate godfiends, they were still favored by heaven and earth. Therefore, killing them was unknown. Of course, with the providence that the World Devastator Taoist had inherited from the creation Green Lotus, devouring some connate spiritual items was nothing. It would not affect him much. However, there was a limit to everything. For example, the World Devastator Taoist devoured connate spiritual items without any restraint. No matter how great his providence was, he could not withstand such a creation. It could be said that the World Devastator Taoist's death was caused by Feng Zichen. In reality, his providence had run out and he had been abandoned by the heavenly Tao. Otherwise, did he really think that the World Devastator Taoist was so easy to kill? He was a connate godfiend who had the legacy of the Chaos Green Lotus and had the providence to open heaven. In terms of status, even if he was not as good as the three pure ones, he was not far behind. He had the characteristic of turning misfortune into luck and misfortune into fortune. If the heavenly Tao had not abandoned the World Devastator Taoist, even if Feng Zichen's cultivation level was far higher than his, he would not be able to kill him today. This might even become his opportunity. It was his own doing that gave Feng Zichen the chance to kill him. Go! Putting away the grade 12 Black Lotus of World Destruction, Feng Zichen cast a spell to erase all traces of what had happened here before hurriedly leaving. The 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction was of great importance. It was the treasure of the demonic sect. The loss of this treasure would definitely cause a huge commotion. Perhaps even the fiend ancestor Rahu, who had disappeared for many years, would appear because of this. Feng Zichen was not an idiot. It was impossible for him to stupidly stay where he was and wait for the evil cult elites to come and take revenge. Now that he had gotten his hands on the benefits, it was best to slip away. With the level 12 Black Lotus of World Destruction in his hand, Feng Zichen did not dare to stay in untainted land any longer. He hurriedly returned to the South Pole Star and heaved a sigh of relief. He was not afraid of the demonic sects experts, but he was afraid of demon ancestor Rahu. This was the true supreme expert of the primordial world, the person who had once suppressed Tao ancestor Hongjun. Who wouldn't be afraid of him? Feng Zichen was not even a primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian. Of course, he did not dare to face such a person directly. It would be safer to hide in his own base camp, the boundless starry sky. With God Pangu around, at least his safety could be guaranteed. I have to find an opportunity to send this 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction to Xianxia. Even after returning to the boundless starry sky, Feng Zichen was still a little worried. He felt that this Black Lotus of World Destruction was really a big trouble and could not be kept in his hands. Otherwise, if the fiend ancestor Ra followed his aura to find him, wouldn't it be uncomfortable? Even if the fiend ancestor did not take action, this treasure would be exposed sooner or later if it was kept in his hands. So, he had to send the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction away. No, it was best to destroy it. Coincidentally, the Green Lotus of Creation was in the hands of Xianxia. He could send this 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction over and let it be devoured to become a resource for him to upgrade to an innate treasure. Now, Feng Zichen had the 12th grade White Lotus of Purification, the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction, and the pool of Golden Lotus of Merit that he had obtained from the 8 treasure pool of Mount Meru. If the Green Lotus of Creation devoured all these innate lotus flowers, it would probably become a top-grade innate treasure in one fell swoop. Its power would be comparable to the 3 heaven-opening treasures. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen could not help but feel a little excited. It turned out that he had unknowingly collected so many Chaos Green Lotus fragments. If he planned properly, he might be able to gather the 4 innate Lotus platforms in the future and recreate a trace of the divine power of the Chaos Green Lotus. Hongmeng Daozhong come. With a slight movement in his heart, Feng Zichen summoned Hongmeng Daozhong and put away the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction. In an instant, the aura of the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction, it completely disappeared from the primordial world. No matter how the demonic experts searched, they could not sense its aura at all. It was the same even if the demon ancestor personally took action. The power of Hongmeng Daozhong was no joke. It could even hide the heavenly way, let alone the demon ancestor. However, in this way Hongmeng Daozhong could no longer be used. Otherwise, once Hongmeng Daozhong was used, it would leak the aura of the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction that it was suppressing. But this did not matter, because soon, the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction would become the resource for the Green Lotus of Creation to become an innate treasure. Go! With a stroke of his hand, Feng Zichen tore open a spatial rift and sent Hongmeng Daozhong in. On the other side of the spatial rift was the location of the 3 immortal islands of the East Sea. At this time, the saints were not there, and the heavenly way was powerless to look after the primordial world. It was the best time for the Green Lotus of Creation to become an innate treasure. While Luai's incarnation was busy dealing with the 12th grade Black Lotus of World Destruction, Feng Zichen's other 2 incarnations were not idle either. Gaochen's incarnation first took out the Human Path Imperial Seal, the Human Path Treasure, from the mini-primordial world, and then hurried to the ancestral land of the human race. At this time, the ancestral land of the human race was being besieged by a group of innate ferocious beasts. There were millions of innate ferocious beasts, and each of them was no lower than a golden immortal. Among them, there were tens of thousands of Tai Jingxian beasts and dozens of Daluo Jingxian beast kings. The most terrifying ones were the 6 leading innate ferocious beasts. Their bodies were incomparably huge. His strength was even more terrifying. It was comparable to the strength of a demisage in the middle stage. Under the siege of these innate ferocious beasts, the protective boundary that Niuhua had set up back then could not help but tremble as if it could break at any time. If the barrier was really broken, the human race would face a calamity of annihilation. How could a Daluo Jingxian survive the siege of millions of innate ferocious beasts if his cultivation was not as strong as a Daluo Jingxian? If the human race's lower and middle levels were all killed, what could they do even if the upper echelons survived? How was that different from annihilation? Therefore, the human race's boundary could not be broken. With this thought in mind, Fuxi resolutely walked out of the human race's boundary and fought with the 6 pre-saint innate ferocious beasts to relieve the pressure that the human race's boundary was facing. If Fuxi was still in his peak state, he would not be afraid of 6 mid-saint connate ferocious beasts, let alone 6 mid-saint connate ferocious beasts. Unfortunately, Fuxi's cultivation had only recovered to the early saint realm. Without the connate god-fiend body that had been refined for hundreds of millions of years, his cultivation was not much stronger than the beasts. He could still win against 1 or 2 beasts. It would be a bit difficult to deal with 3 or 4 beasts. But now, fighting 1 against 6, he was no match for them at all. The 6 mid-saint connate ferocious beasts did not use any other means at all. They just relied on their powerful innate bodies to beat Fuxi into retreat. It had to be said that as the connate ferocious beasts transformed from the remains of the chaos demon god, their bodies were really too strong. Fuxi's magic could only scratch their skin when it hit their bodies. It could not cause any harm at all. Fortunately, the He Tu and the inscription of the Luo were now in Fuxi's hands. It was with this treasure that Fuxi could barely hold on under the siege of the 6 beasts and pose a threat to them. But even so, as time passed, Fuxi could not hold on any longer. A supreme-grade innate spiritual treasure. It was not that easy to activate. Every time Fuxi activated the He Tu and the inscription of the Luo with all his strength, it was also a huge burden for him. The power of a pre-saint was not endless. Once Fuxi's power was exhausted, he would die in the hands of the six beasts. Usually, Fuxi could run away if he could not win. But now, the human race was behind him. If he were to leave, the human race would be finished. So, in order to protect the human race, he could not leave even if he died. Finally, after killing 2 Khanate ferocious beasts in a row, Fuxi's power was also exhausted. He was powerless to activate the He-2 and the inscription of the Luo to fight against the remaining 4 Khanate ferocious beasts. Cough cough. I didn't expect that I, Fuxi, would have such a day. Looking at the 4 ferocious beasts getting closer and closer, Fuxi first laughed self-deprecatingly. Then, a trace of madness appeared on his face. He was about to burn his origin and perish together with the 4 ferocious beasts in front of him. This was the only thing he could do for the human race now. Boom! Rays of brilliance bloomed from Fuxi's body. A terrifying aura spread, stirring the surrounding void into pieces. He was going all out. His Khanate origin was burning wildly. Roar! Even the 4 ferocious beasts, who had no spiritual intelligence, could not help but roar uneasily under the influence of Fuxi's aura. The prediction of danger was the instinct of all creatures. Even the Khanate ferocious beasts were no exception. Making up his mind, Fuxi was about to charge towards the 4 ferocious beasts. But at this moment, the human Tao Emperor's seal suddenly descended from the sky and landed on Fuxi's head, freezing him in place. Immediately, rays of dazzling human Tao light fell from the human Tao Emperor's seal and surged into Fuxi's body, calming the restless origin in his body and healing his injuries. Without a doubt, this was Feng Zichen's move. At this critical moment, he sacrificed the human Tao Emperor's seal to save Fuxi. In fact, when the Khanate ferocious beasts besieged the human race, Feng Zichen had arrived, but he did not lend a hand. The reason was simple. He wanted to see what Fuxi's temperament was like. In the end, Fuxi was still a demon and not a pure human. Who knew what kind of position the human race had in his heart? Therefore, when Fuxi was fighting with the 6 Khanate ferocious beasts, Feng Zichen chose to stand by and watch. He quietly hid in the dark and waited for Fuxi's choice. After that, when he saw Fuxi decide to die together with the Khanate ferocious beasts in order to protect the human race, Feng Zichen confirmed his temperament and saved him. It was no wonder that Feng Zichen was so cautious. Because he was going to pass the human Tao Emperor's seal to Fuxi next. This action represented the transfer of the supreme power of the human race, and also represented that Feng Zichen approved of Fuxi and was determined to pass the position of the human race's leader to him. Without knowing Fuxi's true thoughts, how could Feng Zichen dare to pass the human Tao Emperor's seal to him? This matter concerned the rise and fall of the human race, so it was not too much to be cautious. Fortunately, Fuxi's actions received Feng Zichen's approval. He was willing to die for the human race. He was qualified to become the human race's leader. After healing Fuxi's injuries, a ray of divine light suddenly shot out from the human Tao Emperor's seal and entered Fuxi's glabella. It was recognizing a master. At this moment, Fuxi had become the master of the human Tao Emperor's seal. Of course, this so-called master of Fuxi was still a bit exaggerated. He only had the right to use the human Tao Emperor's seal, but not ownership. The ownership of the human Tao Emperor's seal was naturally still in Feng Zichen's hands. It made sense. No matter how generous he was, he couldn't just give away a treasure for free. He was just lending it to the human race's leader. If Feng Zichen needed it, he could take it back at any time. Besides, he hadn't left it behind without a purpose. Although the human Tao Emperor's seal's name contained the word human, its main power still came from the chaos bead, so it didn't really fit the name. Therefore, Feng Zichen planned to use the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors to refine the treasure for him. With the 8 supreme human emperors and him, a total of 9 emperors would nourish the human Tao Emperor's seal. Thinking about it, it could allow him to complete his cultivation and completely become a human Tao supreme treasure. In this way, the human emperor would benefit, and he would also benefit. It was the best of both worlds. This is the Khanate absolute treasure, Emperor Li's seal? What great power! Looking at the human Tao Emperor's seal in his hand, Fuxi had mixed feelings. He'd been Emperor Shi of the demon race for hundreds of millions of years. Although he'd enjoyed great glory, he'd never received a Khanate absolute treasure. But after his reincarnation, he'd only been the human emperor for tens of thousands of years, and a Khanate absolute treasure had come to recognize him as its master. This, Fuxi was speechless. But soon, his thoughts were pulled back to reality by a fierce beast roar. Seeing that Fuxi hadn't made a move yet, the four greater heaven-fierce beasts grew impatient and took the initiative to attack. With a heavy heart, Fuxi took out the human Tao Emperor's seal and blasted it at the four beasts. With the Khanate absolute treasure in hand, Fuxi's strength increased exponentially. These four mid-Saint Khanate beasts were no longer his match. Rumble! An extremely great power suddenly surged out from the human Tao Emperor's seal, twisting the laws and shaking up the universe. Chapter 547. That was Pangu's power. Although the human Tao Imperial Seal was forged with the Chaos Bead as its core, its main material was Pangu's finger bone. In other words, if the seal's power could be fully unleashed, it would possess the power of a single finger of Pangu's. One could imagine just how terrifying a single finger of Pangu's would be. Even if Fuxi couldn't fully awaken the seal with his current strength, he'd be able to kill the four Khanate beasts as long as he could activate a sliver of its power. In the past, when the seal had been in Feng Zichen's hands, he'd only been able to unleash the Chaos Bead's power. He hadn't been able to see the power of Pangu's finger bone at all. That was because the Chaos Bead alone was enough for Feng Zichen. There was no need to use the power of Pangu's finger bone at all. Besides, Feng Zichen didn't use the power of Pangu's finger bone because he was planning to keep a trump card up his sleeve. Keeping a few trump cards up one's sleeve could often produce unexpected results. For example, when it came to scheming against others, but that wouldn't do now. In order to use the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors to perfect the seal, Feng Zichen had to pass it on to them. However, the Chaos Bead's existence couldn't be discovered by them at all costs. Otherwise, it would be a very big problem for Feng Zichen. Therefore, the Chaos Bead's power in the seal couldn't be used by the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Therefore, to ensure the seal's power, Feng Zichen decided to release Pangu's fingerbone's authority while concealing the Chaos Bead's power. In this way, the seal would undergo a tremendous transformation. It had gone from a supreme treasure that could suppress time and space to an unparalleled offensive treasure. Moreover, with this change, there was a reasonable explanation for the origin of the human Tao Imperial Seal. Although the primordial wilderness was vast, there were only a limited number of Khanate peerless treasures. One couldn't have appeared out of nowhere. Without a logical origin, everyone would inevitably suspect that a Khanate peerless treasure had changed its appearance and become the human Tao Imperial Seal. Suspicions came and went. Perhaps they would even suspect the Chaos Bead. There were only a few items that could be transformed into Khanate cardinal treasures. If someone was serious, they might not have thought of the Chaos Bead. There was no need to doubt the wisdom of the great mystical abilities of the great desolate world. Those who could live to this day and still stand tall were not simple people. They were very shrewd. However, if the origins of the human Tao Emperor's seal were proven to be a Khanate peerless treasure formed from Pangu's finger bone, then everything would make sense. With how powerful Pangu was, there was a high chance that a finger bone and some rare Khanate spirit items could be refined into a Khanate cardinal treasure. By then, the powerful beings of the prehistorical era would not have too many doubts, except for the fact that the humankind was so lucky to find Pangu's finger bone. The matter of the Chaos Bead would also be completely covered up. This was because everyone's attention was on Pangu's finger bone. Rumble! The world trembled inexplicably. The phantom of a purple finger gradually appeared behind the human Tao Imperial insignia. It was the shadow of Pangu's finger. Pangu's aura surged over and actually awakened the fear rooted in the depths of the 4 Khanate beasts' bloodlines, forcing them to roar uneasily. Then, without looking back, they fled into the distance. They were afraid. They were truly afraid. As Khanate beasts formed from the remnants of the Chaos Demon God, they had inherited the Chaos Demon God's bloodline as well as the Demon God's fear of Pangu. The stronger they were, the more obvious their reaction would be. Therefore, after sensing Panga's aura, they didn't even dare think of resisting. They fled into the distance with almost no regard for anything else. Hurrying to escape was the only thought in their minds at this moment. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Rumble. The phantom of Panga's finger was like a pillar that supported the heavens as it pointed forward with a boom. Then, the 4 beasts that were fleeing in panic exploded at the same time, turning into a rain of blood that rained down on the untainted land. With just one strike, the 4 Khanate beasts comparable to Mid-Saint were killed by the human Tao Emperor's seal. The 4 ferocious beasts were clearly fleeing in 4 different directions. However, Panga's finger had just lightly pointed forward, and the 4 Khanate beasts had died at the same time. Twisting time and folding space. The power of Panga's finger was that powerful. Kill! After killing the 4 Khanate beasts, Fuxi activated the human Tao Emperor's seal again. Immediately, an extremely vast power descended and instantly swept through the space within a radius of hundreds of millions of miles. Bang 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 bang, the vast and unparalleled power suddenly pressed down. The Khanate beasts that were besieging the human race's boundary were shattered into pieces before they could even scream. At this point, the crisis of the human race was immediately resolved. Of course, Fuxi didn't kill all the Khanate beasts. He still left behind hundreds of Khanate beasts at the Xianxian level and tens of thousands of Khanate beasts at the Golden Immortal level. He intended to use this to train the human race. Greetings, Your Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty, for saving my life. Putting away the human Tao Emperor's seal, Fuxi bowed solemnly to the front. There, a blurry figure had appeared out of nowhere. He was staring at the human race in front of him with an extremely complicated gaze. This person was Feng Zichen. Get up. Feng Zichen retracted his gaze and gently lifted Fuxi up with his right hand. The current Fuxi was no match for him. Thank you, Your Majesty. After standing up, Fuxi thanked him again. No matter how illustrious he was in his previous life, he was only a human in this life. When he saw Feng Zichen, the greatest emperor of the human race, there was no reason not to worship him. Moreover, the Tao he cultivated in this life was the Tao of God-fiends. Now that the ancestral master was in front of him, he naturally had to worship him. Moreover, just now, if Feng Zichen hadn't come to save him, he would have died at the hands of the Khanate beasts. In this way, he had even less reason not to worship Feng Zichen. As for why Fuxi, as a disciple of the Grand Pure One, cultivated the Tao of God-fiends passed down by Feng Zichen and not the Tao of Golden Core passed down by the Grand Pure One, that was related to the current situation of the human race. The current human race was mainly focused on the Tao of God-fiends. The rest were all minor Taos. If Fuxi cultivated the Tao of Golden Core passed down by the Grand Pure One, then it would be difficult for him to control the human race. It would be almost impossible. At the very least, the descendants of the God-fiends, who occupied 99% of the human race's forces, would not allow the descendants of the Golden Core lineage to occupy the position of the human race's patriarch. For the current human race, the Tao of God-fiends was the orthodox, and only the orthodox could inherit the throne. What Fuxi cultivated was the Tao of God-fiends. You are now the human race's patriarch and the leader of the human race. There's no need to be so polite to me. Feng Zichen waved his hand and said, In front of Your Majesty, Fuxi doesn't dare to be rude. Even though Feng Zichen said so, Fuxi still said very politely, Your Majesty, you must return to the clan to take a look. As he said that, Fuxi looked at Feng Zichen with an expectant gaze. The current primordial world was too chaotic and dangerous. He had no confidence that he could protect the human race under such circumstances. Just like today, if not for Feng Zichen's timely action, the entire human race would have become a part of the primordial world's history. If Feng Zichen could return to the human race, with such an expert holding down the fort, the human race would have nothing to worry about. No! My era has passed. The current human race is your era. Feng Zichen shook his head and refused. If he returned to the human race at this time, Then who would be the leader of the human race? If Fuxi was the leader, then wouldn't Feng Zichen be under Fuxi? Not to mention whether he would agree or not, even his clansmen wouldn't agree. If he was the leader, then where would Fuxi be? What was the point of him being the emperor? Therefore, in order to pave the way for the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, even if Feng Zichen wanted to return to the human race, he couldn't return during this period of time. However, Feng Zichen was very gratified that Fuxi could say these words. If it wasn't for the sake of the human race, how could Fuxi say such words? One had to know that if Feng Zichen returned to the human race at this time, the one who would suffer the greatest loss would be Fuxi. From this, it could be seen that for the sake of the human race, Fuxi could really sacrifice his own interests. Just this point alone was worth Feng Zichen passing on the position of the human race's patriarch to him. Fuxi, from now on, the human race is yours. Smiling and nodding at Fuxi, Feng Zichen's figure slowly disappeared. He was very relieved to leave the human race to Fuxi. In the void, Feng Zichen wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he spread out his divine consciousness and carefully explored the void. As expected, a moment later, Feng Zichen got the answer he wanted. He withdrew his divine consciousness and chased in a certain direction. There, a figure surrounded by a murderous aura was crazily shuttling through space, escaping to a mysterious place. Damn it! Wasn't the human emperor sealed by the Eastern Emperor Tai? Why would he suddenly appear here? The person cursed with an ugly expression as he fled crazily. He was the Shadow Demon. He was one of the 8 great elders of the demon sect and had the cultivation of the great perfection of the sage-to-be. He was once active in the last days of the ancient times and killed many elders of the 3 clans. Note, with the end of the Age of Liches, time moved forward. The Age of the 3 clans became the ancient times, and the Age of Liches became the ancient times. At that time, his cultivation was only at the great perfection of Daluo Jingxian. Although he was a high-ranking member of the demon sect, he wasn't considered to be in charge. But now, countless years had passed. The shadow demon's cultivation had broken through one after another and became a great perfection of the sage-to-be. He had also successfully become the decision-maker of the demon sect. This time, he was ordered by the demon ancestor, Rahu, to destroy the human race in an attempt to defy the destiny and destroy the plan of the heavenly Tao to revive the human race. The innate realm beasts that besieged the human race were forcibly summoned by the demon ancestor, Rahu, with the magic treasure given by the demon ancestor. Otherwise, how could it be so coincidental that so many innate realm beasts came to attack the human race? This was clearly a planned attack by the demon sect. Not only the human race, but even the innate realm alliance was being besieged by the demon sect elders and the innate realm beasts. The human race and the innate realm alliance were the only 2 major forces left in the primordial world. If they were all destroyed, then the primordial world would really become the territory of the innate realm beasts. The demon sect could also rely on this to prosper. Unfortunately, although the demon sect's plan was good, they had not appeared in the primordial world for a long time. The news seemed to be a little outdated, and they had missed out on Feng Zichen. Otherwise, this plan might really succeed. However, Feng Zichen appeared. Everything was different. In fact, whether it was the demon sect that ruled the primordial world or the celestial sect of wonders that ruled the primordial world, Feng Zichen did not care much. However, now that the demon sect wanted to destroy the human race, he had no choice but to care. The demon sect could not be left alive. Compared to the demon sect, at the very least, the celestial sect of wonders still hoped that the human race would prosper. In this way, how to choose? It was self-evident. The innate realm beasts were attacking the human race on a large scale. This was obviously not right. It would be strange if there was nothing fishy about it. Therefore, Feng Zichen released his spiritual will to investigate the surrounding void to see if there were any clues left behind by the mastermind. This investigation, sure enough, made him discover the problem. Somewhere in the void, there was a trace of extremely hidden demonic aura. Obviously, the attack of the innate realm beasts on the human race had something to do with the demon sect. Sensing this, Feng Zichen was furious, but he did not forget to deduce the demon sect's plan. Although the demon sect's plan was hidden, since he had already caught on to it, then all the concealment was meaningless. Not long after, Feng Zichen deduced the demon sect's general plan. Therefore, he first sent a voice transmission to Fuxi and asked him to go and rescue the innate alliance. Then, he followed the trace of the demonic aura and tracked down the mastermind behind this time. No matter what, the mastermind behind this plot against the human race had to die today. A dragon had a reverse scale, and it would be angry if it was touched. The human race was Feng Zichen's reverse scale. Anyone who dared to attack the human race would suffer his anger. Today was to clearly tell the demon sect. If they dared to attack the human race, they would have to pay the corresponding price. The shadow demon was just the beginning. Fellow Taoist in front, please wait. It didn't take long for Feng Zichen to catch up with the shadow demon and shout at it. Not good. Hearing this, the shadow demon's expression changed drastically. He hurriedly used a secret technique and fled forward at all costs. It was not that he did not want to fight, but he could not beat him at all. After hearing Feng Zichen's voice, the shadow demon had just had the thought of stopping in his heart. In his sea of consciousness, the image of his death suddenly appeared, and the future also became blurry. At this time, the shadow demon knew that he was no match for the other party no matter what. If he stayed, he would definitely die. Therefore, the shadow demon directly used a secret technique. He did not hesitate to burn his origin and pay the price of a great loss of strength to increase his speed and escape toward the demon sect's base camp. As long as he escaped there, he would be safe. The demon sect's base camp could be said to be where most of the demon sect's strength was concentrated. Even the demon ancestor Rahu had left to gaze there. Unless Dao ancestor Hongjun personally made a move, no one would be able to break through there. Feng Zichen naturally could not. Chapter 548. Leave. Do you think you can leave? Looking at the figure of the other party fleeing in panic, Feng Zichen smiled faintly. He then took out the million sword illustration and shook it gently in front of him. In an instant, hundreds of millions of sword lights burst out from the void and swept towards the shadow demon who was frantically fleeing. Before he could turn around, the shadow demon knew that something was wrong. While he was shocked, he did not forget to use all his strength to stimulate the murderous aura around his body to form a layer of pitch-black protective shield outside his body, intending to block this attack. However, the huge gap made his efforts all useless. In just a breath, the defensive shield raised by the shadow demon was shattered into pieces by the sword light. Ah! Screams came out of the shadow demon's mouth. However, his body was cut off piece by the sudden attack of the sword light. The real separation of flesh and blood. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. The demonic path was bumpy. If he wanted to achieve something, he would have to experience some unimaginable torture. The pain that the shadow demon had experienced along the way was more severe than death by 1,000 cuts. Therefore, the pain of the physical body alone could not shake the shadow demon's heart. However, while the sword light was cutting his body, the sword intent contained in it could penetrate his body and reach his primordial spirit and even true spirit. The pain of the primordial spirit and true spirit being cut was countless times more intense than the pain of the physical body. After being tortured like this, even the shadow demon, who had a strong mind, could not help but let out a shrill scream. This was a torture for cultivators, the punishment of death by 1,000 cuts for cultivators. When the sword light disappeared, only a skeleton was left of the shadow demon's body. The flesh and blood on his body were all cut off by the sword light. Even his primordial spirit was completely wiped out by the sword intent, leaving only an incomparably brilliant, innate, indestructible true spirit. Feng Zichen's attack took half of the shadow demon's life. It would be difficult for him to recover to his peak state without hundreds of millions of years of bitter cultivation. Great Taoist priests? He's really strong. Taking a few breaths of cold air, The shadow demon looked at Feng Zichen, who was approaching him, and said with difficulty, "Too strong." The gap between the two of them was too great. They were both in the same realm as Daluo Jingxian, but he couldn't even take a single blow from him. After all, the Grand Taoist priests represented the invincibility of Daluo Jingxian. Although Shadow Demon was only at the great perfection of Sage to be, he was at the limit of Daluo Jingxian. However, a limit was still a limit. He was still in Daluo Jingxian's realm. Of course, he was no match for him. Note: Feng Zichen has just broken through. At this time, no one knows that he is at the half-step primordial chaos realm. In addition, the other party had the support of the power of rank, so he was even less of a match for him. Looking at Feng Zichen, the shadow demons silently thought that it would be difficult for him to escape today. But who wouldn't want to live if they could? Therefore, Shadow Demon felt that he could give it another try. "That is me." "What's wrong, fellow Taoist Shadow Demon? Why aren't you running anymore?" Walking to the front of Shadow Demon, Feng Zichen teased. There was no need to ask about the other party's identity. The moment he saw the Shadow Demon's true spirit, he naturally knew. When one's strength reached such a realm, his own traces had long been deeply engraved between heaven and earth. Facing the true spirit directly, any information he wanted could be easily divined, not to mention divining the identity of the other party. In the primordial chaos, one's face could be covered, his body could be covered, the secrets of heaven could be covered, the primordial spirit could be covered, and even the magic treasures could be covered. However, the innate, undying true spirit could not be covered. This was the foundation of a living creature. It needed to be well hidden. After all, exposing the innate, undying true spirit was equivalent to exposing everything. Grand Taoist priests, you must be joking. In front of you, there is no reason for me to escape. As Shadow Demon replied, he tried to restore his physical body and primordial spirit. However, he was soon disappointed. That was because he discovered that every time his flesh and blood were about to be reborn, a sword intent would emerge from the depths of his body and destroy the new flesh and blood. That was the sword intent that Feng Zichen had left in his body. The sword intent that Feng Zichen sent out had the characteristic of being indestructible. Even if the sword light disappeared, the sword intent could always stay on Shadow Demon's body and continue to destroy his physical body until the moment his innate, undying true spirit completely collapsed. Are you stalling for time? Are you waiting for someone to save you? Looking at Shadow Demon, who was trying hard to restore his physical body, Feng Zichen asked curiously. Restoring his physical body was fake. The real thing was to secretly send out a distress signal. Using the restoration of his physical body to attract Feng Zichen's attention and then taking the opportunity to send out a distress signal was the Shadow Demon's plan. Feng Zichen noticed it, but he didn't stop it. How could the Shadow Demon's little trick be hidden from him? But he really didn't care. He wasn't bragging. In the current demon sect, other than demon ancestor Rahu, no one was his match. Therefore, no matter who came next, they wouldn't be his match. They were just here to die. If the demon sect wanted to exterminate the human race, of course, they had to pay a sufficient price. How could a shadow demon be enough? Therefore, Feng Zichen wouldn't stop Shadow Demon's actions. If another one came, it would be just enough for a pair. Killing them together would be a warning to the demon sect. He believed that this warning would be enough to leave a deep impression on the demon sect. As for why Feng Zichen was so sure that it wasn't demon ancestor Ra, of course, it was because with demon ancestor Rahu's realm, there was no need to wait for him to ask for help if he wanted to save Shadow Demon. He should have made a move when Shadow Demon was in danger. However, demon ancestor Rahu hadn't made a move until now. That meant that a mere Shadow Demon wasn't worth his help. Feng Zichen, who had figured this out, was naturally not afraid. You, the great Taoist priests, are really conceited. When he first heard Feng Zichen's words, Shadow Demon was really shocked and subconsciously wanted to quibble. However, in the next moment, he realized that the signal for help he sent out wasn't intercepted. At this moment, he was puzzled at first, but then he came to a sudden realization and somewhat understood Feng Zichen's thoughts. Then he was angry. How confident must this person be to treat the entire demon sect as if they were nothing? Humiliating others wasn't like this. Shadow Demon was really about to go crazy with anger. The dignified demon sect, the only two supreme sects in the primordial world, was actually looked down upon like this. It was really, when the experts of the sect arrived, he would definitely make the person in front of him pay the price. Looking at Feng Zichen in front of him, Shadow Demon thought to himself. The huge anger made him temporarily forget his current dangerous situation. It was really funny. Next, the two of them looked at each other and fell into silence, quietly waiting for the arrival of the experts of the demon sect. Tsk. It seems that fellow Taoist Shadow Demon's identity in the demon sect isn't that great. The experts sent by the demon sect as reinforcements are actually just clones. How disappointing. After a while, Feng Zichen suddenly said with a disappointed face. The experts of the demon sect as reinforcements had arrived. They were at the half-step primordial chaos realm. Their background was great, but unfortunately, it was just a clone. This made Feng Zichen, who thought that he could catch a big fish, feel even more disappointed. What a waste of time. With that, Feng Zichen suddenly raised his right hand and punched forward. There, a cloud of black murderous aura appeared and was about to take human form. Rumble. Feng Zichen punched out. The void collapsed, and the universe shook. Unparalleled power burst out and directly blasted the figure that had not yet formed into the void. Fellow Taoist Shadow Demon, it's time for you to go. After punching out, Feng Zichen did not look at the result. He directly looked at the Shadow Demon and was about to send him on his way. Since he could not catch the big fish of the demon sect, there was no value in keeping this person alive. You want to kill me? It's not that easy. Seeing that the experts who came to support him were beaten back by Feng Zichen's punch, the Shadow Demon knew that there was no way out and did not have any hope. He directly used the strongest attack of the demon sect. Self-destruction. He was dead. He could not let Feng Zichen have it easy. Boom. A powerful aura rose from the Shadow Demon's body. His entire body began to expand. Violent power poured out of his body, causing the void to shake endlessly and distort the laws. You want to self-destruct? Have you asked me? Feng Zichen just smiled and did not care. Self-destruction when one was in a desperate situation had almost become a tradition of the demon sect. Knowing that he was dealing with a powerful expert of the demon sect, how could Feng Zichen not be prepared? With a thought, Feng Zichen launched a counterattack. Then, under the Shadow Demon's incredulous eyes, hundreds of millions of bright sword lights erupted from his body and destroyed his origin. Chi, the origin was destroyed. The Shadow Demon's swollen body was like a punctured balloon. It made a leaking sound and slowly shriveled. At this point, the process of the Shadow Demon's self-destruction was forcefully interrupted. How is this possible? Until now, the Shadow Demon still could not believe that his strongest attack was so easily neutralized by Feng Zichen. It was too easy. He was too naive. Even the sword intent could not be destroyed, let alone the sword light. Feng Zichen was a grandmaster of spacetime. To him, distorting time and space was the simplest method. The sword light that was released earlier did not disappear at all. Instead, it was hidden in the future. He was waiting for the moment when the Shadow Demon self-destructed so that he could launch a sudden attack. What a good method. I have no complaints about my loss. But don't be complacent. It won't be long before I return. After figuring out Feng Zichen's method, the Shadow Demon suddenly laughed a few times and was about to shatter his innate indestructible true spirit to end his own life. He was dead, he was going to die in his own hands. As long as the primordial world was not destroyed, Daluo Jingxian would not really die. Therefore he would not really die. What was there to be afraid of? Besides, with the methods of the demon sect, it would not be long before they could gather his true spirit and resurrect him. Since that was the case, he might as well be more straightforward and end it himself so that he would not be tortured again. Wait for him to be resurrected, and then settle the karma with Feng Zichen. There were countless experts in the demon sect. The shadow demon did not believe that no one could subdue Feng Zichen. Ridiculous! Who allowed you to die without my permission? Seeing that the shadow demon was about to end his own life, Feng Zichen's face darkened. Cultivators cherished their lives. And his own life? That was absolutely unbelievable. Especially the people of the demon sect. The secret techniques of the demon sect were extremely strange, and faking death was their specialty. If he did not kill the shadow demon with his own hands, who knew if he was really dead or if he had used a secret technique to fake his death to escape? As his thoughts raced, Feng Zichen directly used the supreme divine ability to reverse yin and yang, causing everything to be reversed. The shadow demon's action of ending his own life was interrupted on the spot. After that, Feng Zichen directly used the way of space-time to seal the space-time around the shadow demon, fixing him on the spot. For a quasi-saint cultivator, shattering the true spirit is not considered death. Fellow Taoist shadow demon, if you really want to die, then I have a divine ability that can satisfy your wish. As he walked towards the shadow demon, the aura on Feng Zichen's body suddenly changed. It became tyrannical, it became domineering, it became fierce. All kinds of characteristics that belonged to the chaos demon god emerged from his body one by one. Then, wisps of purple-black murderous aura spread out from his body, emitting a heart-palpitating fluctuation that made people tremble in fear. Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura. That was the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura. The purple-black murderous aura that spread out from Feng Zichen's body was the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura that accompanied Panga's body. At the same time, he was also in this world. The most powerful murderous aura. Boom. The Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura on Feng Zichen's body became denser and denser, making him look like a chaos demon god, incomparably imposing and incomparably tyrannical. Fellow Taoist shadow demon, it's time to go. Just like that, Feng Zichen walked in front of the shadow demon and pointed at him with his finger that was surrounded by the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura. No! The shadow demon was really afraid. The way he looked at Feng Zichen was completely filled with fear. That was the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura. If he was tainted with a trace of it, he would probably have no chance of returning in the future. Daluo Jingxian would not die. However, no one could guarantee that Daluo Jingxian would definitely return after he fell. Long sleep could also turn into eternal sleep. Eternal sleep, he would never wake up. What was the difference between that and complete death? Normally speaking, it was very difficult to make Daluo Jingxian or even a quasi-saint expert fall into eternal sleep. However, it did not mean that it was impossible. Coincidentally, the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura had this ability. The murderous aura was like a poison attached to the bone. As long as it could not be eliminated, it would pester you forever and devour your intelligence until the primordial world was destroyed. During this process, the murderous aura would become stronger and stronger because of the devouring of the true spirit. In theory, any murderous aura had the ability to make Daluo Jingxian fall into eternal sleep. However, how could ordinary murderous aura threaten an expert of such a realm? He could probably destroy it with a thought. Only the highest level of murderous aura like the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura could make Daluo Jingxian and even the quasi-saint helpless. They could only watch as they gradually walked towards destruction. The path of cultivation of the demonic sect was mainly to devour murderous aura. It was precisely because of this that the shadow demon understood the terror of the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura better than ordinary people. The more he understood, the more terrified he was. Therefore, after seeing the Du Tian Divine Murderous Aura, the shadow demon was so terrified. Chapter 549. This was because he knew that once he was touched by it, everything would be over. Unfortunately, the shadow demon was fixed to the spot by Feng Zichen's space-time power. He could not move at all, let alone resist. He could only watch helplessly as despair approached him. Fellow Taoist, be on your way. Shaking his head with a smile, Feng Zichen ignored the shadow demon's resistance and forcefully imprinted the Du Tian divine baleful qi into his true spirit. Sizzle. As soon as the Du Tian divine baleful qi came into contact with the innate indestructible true spirit of the shadow demon, there was a sound of burning iron, and wisps of smoke spread out. That was the power produced when the two fought against each other and destroyed each other. Using the Du Tian divine baleful qi to make the shadow demon fall into eternal sleep was easy to say, but it was still difficult to do. It was easier said than done. Theories were often just theories. In reality, it was more troublesome. That was right. If a great divine of the great perfection of sage-to-be could fall into eternal sleep so easily, the untainted land would have been in chaos. Feng Zichen was definitely not the first person to think of using the baleful qi to hurt people. However, there were very few people who could do it, which showed how difficult it was. After some resistance, the Du Tian divine baleful qi gradually entangled with the shadow demon's innate indestructible true spirit. Of course, this was also thanks to Feng Zichen's continuous infusion of the Du Tian divine baleful qi during this period. Wisps of baleful qi spread out and gradually eroded the shadow demon's true spirit. It also followed the mysterious connection and connected with the shadow demon's life imprint. The life imprint was the foundation of the true spirit and was also the basis for future resurrection. If even this was contaminated by the Du Tian divine baleful qi, it meant that the shadow demon was completely finished. Unless there was an existence far beyond the primordial chaos realm who helped him remove the Du Tian divine baleful qi from his true spirit. Otherwise, the shadow demon would fall into eternal sleep. At the same time, the moment the life imprint was contaminated by the Du Tian divine baleful qi, the shadow demon's intelligence was completely destroyed. Hee. How dare you attack the human race? Eternal sleep is the best punishment for you. Looking at the shadow demon's innate indestructible true spirit, Feng Zichen laughed in a low voice. At this moment, his eyes had completely turned purple-black. His aura also became more and more tyrannical. It was as if it would explode at any moment and destroy everything around it. Buzz. At this moment, the fragment of the good fortune jade disc in Feng Zichen's sea of consciousness suddenly trembled violently. Wisps of Taoist rhymes diffused from his body. They were mysterious and unfathomable, gradually calming his restless heart. Phew, without the jade disc of good fortune, I would have been in real danger today. After being stimulated by the fragment of the good fortune jade disc, Feng Zichen finally came to his senses and sighed with fear. Then he immediately dispersed the heavenly divine killing aura on his body. The Du Tian divine killing qi was too strong. It could be said that it was Feng Zichen's strongest attack. However, being too strong wasn't necessarily a good thing. The Du Tian divine killing qi was so strong that Feng Zichen, its master, didn't dare to use it easily. He was afraid that his mind would be affected by it if he wasn't careful. This was also the reason why Feng Zichen rarely used it since he cultivated this magic. This time, he felt that his cultivation had reached the half-step primordial chaos realm. He should be able to barely control the Du Tian divine killing qi without being affected by it. However, he didn't expect that as his cultivation improved, the power of the Du Tian divine killing qi also improved. It was even faster than his cultivation. As a result, when Feng Zichen used the Du Tian divine killing qi, his mind was directly affected and he almost fell into the abyss. Could it be that Dao ancestor Hongjun gave him a fragment of the jade disc of good fortune to compensate him? If he wanted to get rid of the influence of the Du Tian divine killing qi today, he would have to pay a high price. Sigh. It seems that before I transform into a real chaos demon god, I'm afraid I can't use the Du Tian divine killing qi easily. After the enlightenment just now, Feng Zichen had already realized the condition to use the Du Tian divine killing qi without any scruples. That was to become a chaos demon god. Although the Du Tian divine killing qi was strong, its essence was still a kind of chaos qi. And the chaos qi. It was the standard of a chaos demon god. In other words, only a chaos demon god could use the chaos qi without any scruples. If he couldn't become a chaos demon god, even if Feng Zichen's realm was upgraded to the primordial chaos realm, he couldn't use the Du Tian divine killing chi. This was because the moment he became the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, the Du Tian divine killing chi automatically upgraded to the primordial chaos realm. It wasn't weaker than him. At that time, the situation he had to face wasn't much different from the situation he was facing now. But fortunately, it was extremely difficult for others to transform into a chaos demon god. However, it wasn't impossible for Feng Zichen. Now, he was already a chaos creature. One more step and he would become the legendary chaos demon god. And this further opportunity should be the moment he became the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian. At that time, he would further evolve into the Pangu Taoist body. Perhaps he could take this opportunity to cultivate the most powerful chaos demon god body. It didn't matter even if he didn't succeed in the transformation. There were 12 levels of the primordial chaos, and each level was a transformation. As long as he cultivated step by step, there would be a day when he transformed into a chaos demon god. The bones of the shadow demon are not bad. If I add some innate spiritual items, I might be able to refine an upper-grade innate spiritual treasure. It's a pity that his innate origin can be preserved. With the help of his broken innate indestructible true spirit, I can directly refine an supreme-grade innate spiritual treasure. After dealing with his own matters, Feng Zichen couldn't help but look at the skeleton left behind by the shadow demon. The skeleton left behind by an expert in the great perfection of sage to be could be regarded as a treasure, especially the demon sect, which focused on refining the body. Its hardness might not be weaker than an innate spiritual treasure. It was simply a natural material for refining treasures. And it was a material for refining innate spiritual treasures. It was mentioned earlier that besides being born naturally in the heavens and the earth, natural spirit treasures could also be refined with experts at the golden immortal realm and above as the main material. A complete Daluo Jingxian could be refined into several middle and lower grade innate spiritual treasures. A complete sage to be could be refined into several upper grade innate spiritual treasures or even supreme grade innate spiritual treasures. A complete primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian could be refined into a primordial ultimate treasure. When the shadow demon was alive, he was in the great perfection of sage to be. If he could preserve all of his innate origin and refine it slightly, he would be able to obtain an extraordinarily powerful supreme-grade innate spiritual treasure. Unfortunately, in order to prevent the shadow demon from self-destructing, his origin had been completely destroyed by Feng Zichen. But fortunately, his bones were left behind and didn't suffer much damage. In the future, if he could find a suitable innate spiritual treasure and refine it carefully, he would be able to obtain a decent upper-grade innate spiritual treasure. In this operation, just the skeleton of the shadow demon was enough to make up for it. After all, it represented an upper-grade innate spiritual treasure, which was very precious. Not to mention, Feng Zichen hadn't touched the corpse yet. An expert in the great perfection of sage to be would definitely have a lot of good things on him. This time, he might make a fortune. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen was about to touch the corpse. But at this moment, a black light suddenly shot out from the corpse of the shadow demon in front of him and flew quickly into the distance. "Wanna run?" "Stay!" Feng Zichen frowned and reached out his hand to grab it subconsciously. As the void twisted, a black flag appeared in his hand. An acquired cardinal treasure? Looking at the black flag in his hand, Feng Zichen frowned. He thought that the treasure that escaped would at least be a upper-grade innate spiritual treasure. But he didn't expect. It wasn't even an innate spiritual treasure, it was just an acquired cardinal treasure. The huge difference made Feng Zichen a little disappointed. Although the power of an acquired cardinal treasure was not bad, how could it be compared with an innate spiritual treasure? This aura is... Suddenly, Feng Zichen sensed an extremely familiar aura from the black flag. That was the aura that belonged to the chaos demon god. Interesting. With a thought, Feng Zichen released his divine sense and began to refine the black flag. Anything that was related to the chaos fiend god was not simple. Perhaps there was some great fortuitous encounter hidden within this black flag. Rumble. A powerful divine sense was released from Feng Zichen's body and directly poured into the black flag, breaking the divine restrictions in the flag in the most violent way. At this time, Feng Zichen also knew the name of the flag. The Demon God flag was a supreme-grade acquired cardinal treasure with 49 acquired divine restrictions. Such a level of acquired cardinal treasure was rare in the entire untainted land. This also made Feng Zichen believe that the Demon God flag was not simple. Rumble. Inside the Demon God flag, the acquired divine restrictions were broken by Feng Zichen's powerful divine sense and forcibly branded his own mark. Almost there, almost there. In the blink of an eye, 40 acquired divine restrictions were broken by him. The secret hidden in the depths of the Demon God flag was about to be revealed in front of Feng Zichen. However, when he broke the 48th acquired divine restriction and was about to break the 49th acquired divine restriction, a change happened. Rumble. A supreme thought rose from the deepest part of the Demon God flag, behind the 49th divine restriction. A terrifying pressure spread out and directly blasted Feng Zichen's divine sense out of the Demon God flag. At the same time, the 48 acquired divine restrictions that he had just refined were taken back by the other party in an instant. Who is it? How dare you peep at my magic treasure? An extremely loud voice came from the Demon God flag and shattered Feng Zichen's scattered divine sense. At the same time, wisps of black gas were emitted from the Demon God flag and gradually formed a blurry figure. Demon Ancestor Ra. Sensing this supreme aura, Feng Zichen immediately recognized the identity of the person. It was the former #1 expert in the untainted land, Demon Ancestor Ra. He had once felt the aura of Demon Ancestor Rahu in the pagoda, so he would not be mistaken. Break for me. Almost without hesitation, Feng Zichen took out the Zichen sword and the Million Sword illustration. Combining the power of these two supreme-grade innate spiritual treasures, they blasted toward the Demon God flag. At this time, Demon Ancestor Rahu's figure had not completely solidified, so it was the best time to deal with him. When his figure was fully manifested, it would be hard to say who would win today. Junior, it's you again? Feng Zichen recognized Demon Ancestor Rahu, and Demon Ancestor Rahu recognized Feng Zichen. After all, in the untainted land, there were only a few people who could survive after stealing his magic treasure. How could he not be impressed? At this time, he naturally recognized Feng Zichen immediately. But obviously, Feng Zichen had no intention of catching up with him. Whoosh! An incomparably bright sword light suddenly arrived and slashed the Demon God flag. In the next moment, it directly shattered. No matter how extraordinary the Demon God flag was, it was only a supreme-grade acquired supreme treasure. Faced with the full blow of two innate spiritual treasures, it could only shatter. Whoosh! As soon as the Demon God flag shattered, the second sword light came one after another and directly turned the fragments of the Demon God flag into powder. At this point, the Demon God flag had completely disappeared, and the will of Demon Ancestor Ra dissipated quickly after losing its object of sustenance. Junior, you've once again angered me. You're about to receive my wrath. You'd better cherish your final moments. The will of Demon Ancestor Rahu left behind these words before it disappeared. Feng Zichen naturally did not care about this. From his words, it could be inferred that Demon Ancestor Rahu was involved in some matters, so he could not personally descend to the untainted land. Otherwise, what Demon Ancestor Rahu left behind in the end would not be a threat, but a direct descent. Moreover, after taking away the pagoda, he and Demon Ancestor Rahu had formed an irreconcilable feud. Today's matter only deepened the feud between the two. However, it was already a feud to begin with. If it deepened, it would just be the same. However, if Demon Ancestor Rahu knew that the World Devastator Taoist had also died in his hands, then Demon Ancestor Rahu would probably not hesitate to descend here and kill him. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen could not help but feel his scalp go numb. He secretly made a decision in his heart. Before he cultivated to the primordial Chaos Dao realm, He would not leak any information about the World Devastator Taoist. Let's go. After putting away the Shadow Demon's corpse, Feng Zichen did not care about searching the corpse and directly left this place. No matter what. He could not stay here any longer. Who knew if Demon Ancestor Rahu had left any backup plans? If he continued to stay here, wouldn't he be giving the other party a chance to plot against him? Sure enough. Not long after Feng Zichen left. For half-step primordial chaos auras suddenly descended here. Demon God Flag. So, the demon sect uses this Dharma treasure to control the Khanate ferocious beasts. In the void, Feng Zichen was thinking about the Demon God Flag. Although he did not refine the last acquired divine restriction and touch the secrets in the depths of the Demon God Flag. However, he didn't refine those 48 acquired God seals for nothing. It more or less allowed him to know some of the functions of the Demon God Flag. Chapter 550. The Demon God Flag was a treasure used by the demon sect to control the Khanate ferocious beasts. If not for this treasure, the Shadow Demon would not be able to gather millions of Khanate ferocious beasts to besiege the human clan even though he was a perfected sage-to-be. It was no wonder that the Demon Ancestor Rahu was so nervous about this treasure. In order to prevent it from falling into the hands of others, he even left his will in the Demon God Flag. It was because this was the root of the demon sect's chaos. If this treasure fell into the hands of others, they could use it to command the Khanate ferocious beasts. By then, it would be much easier to quell the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts. With the Demon God Flag in hand, one could directly make the Khanate ferocious beasts kill each other. Even if the chaos could not be quelled, the strength of the Khanate ferocious beasts would be greatly reduced. In this way, the strength of the Khanate ferocious beasts would not be enough to threaten the untainted land. The chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts would be resolved immediately. Without the help of the Khanate ferocious beasts, the demon sect alone would not be able to resist the counterattack of the major forces in the untainted land. The situation of the demon sect's rise and the Tao's decline could be reversed in an instant. It could be said that the Demon God Flag was enough to change the current situation in the untainted land. Therefore, the Demon Ancestor Rahu would never let it fall into the hands of others. But unfortunately, he underestimated Feng Zichen too much. If the Demon God Flag fell into the hands of others, they might be able to see its function, but it would be extremely difficult to imitate it. But Feng Zichen was different. He did not dare to say about other treasures, but if it was the Demon God Flag. Feng Zichen, who had been dealing with the Chaos Demonic God for a long time, was able to imitate most of the Chaos Demonic God's 48 divine restrictions, even if he couldn't completely imitate it. The Demon God Flag was made from the Tao of the Chaos Demon God. In terms of understanding of the Chaos Demon God, Feng Zichen could be ranked in the top 3 in the untainted land. Therefore, he had such great confidence in imitating the Demon God Flag. Countless mysterious runes appeared in Feng Zichen's eyes and constantly arranged in the void, gradually forming acquired divine prohibitions. If the Demon Ancestor Rahu was here, he would definitely recognize that these acquired divine prohibitions were the Demon God Flag divine prohibitions. Buzz, 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 divine prohibitions appeared one after another, gradually forming the shadow of a black flag in front of Feng Zichen. It was the Demon God Flag. Bang! Suddenly, when the 49th acquired divine restriction was about to take shape, the Demon God Flag in front of Feng Zichen shook for a while and then exploded, turning into countless talisman characters and vanishing. It seems that the last acquired divine restriction is the most important part of the Demon God Flag. Seeing this, Rahu's God Rao, when he was refining the Fiend God Flag, he had only mastered 48 acquired divine prohibitions. Rahu's God Ron S. Raham. However, before he could comprehend the most important last divine restriction, he was blasted out by Rahu's will. Rahins. Hahin. But in fact, he had miscalculated. As for the 49th acquired divine restriction, his deductions were completely useless. The first 48 divine prohibitions were still fine, but when Feng Zichen imprinted the 49th acquired divine prohibition on the demon god flag, the 49th acquired divine prohibition was completely destroyed. An accident happened. It was the scene just now. The demon god flag exploded. Obviously, this was the result of Feng Zichen deducing the acquired divine restriction not matching the original acquired divine restriction of the demon god flag. This caused the two sides to clash fiercely, causing the phantom of the demon god flag to explode. Alas! I have underestimated the people of the world. Back then, the demon ancestor was able to dominate an era and become the #1 person in the ancient era. Naturally, he had methods that far surpassed the people of the world. Although Feng Zichen was a little disappointed, he felt more at ease. If the magic treasure refined by the demon ancestor Rahu was so easily imitated by him, he would really suspect that there was a trap in it. After all, that was fiend ancestor Rahu. Back then, even Dao ancestor Hongjun was ashamed of his inferiority. The more difficult the imitation process was, the more it could guarantee the authenticity of the matter. But this little difficulty. It was not difficult for Feng Zichen. Let's go. With a thought, Feng Zichen broke through the space and rushed to the Khanate Alliance. If nothing went wrong, there should be another demon god flag there. When Feng Zichen rushed to the Khanate Alliance, Fuxi was there showing his might. He used the Khanate treasure human emperor seal to sweep in all directions and suppress a group of Khanate ferocious beasts. He believed that after this battle, the Khanate Alliance would no longer dare to be enemies with the human race. The day when the human race ruled the primordial world was not far away. After the chaos of the Khanate ferocious beasts was quelled, the human race would definitely become the #1 race in the primordial world. However, Feng Zichen did not appear to meet Fuxi. Now that Fuxi was in the limelight, if he suddenly appeared, it would be inevitable that he would be suspected of stealing Fuxi's limelight. It was better to continue hiding in the dark. Besides, Feng Zichen's purpose of coming here was not to meet Fuxi, but to snatch the other demon god flag. Quietly releasing his divine sense, Feng Zichen carefully probed the surrounding void, trying to find traces of the demon sect expert. Here! Suddenly, Feng Zichen found that something was wrong and looked at a certain void. There was a figure with a murderous aura lurking. Suppress! In an instant, the galaxy rotated on Feng Zichen's body, the universal light flowed, and the power of time rolled out, turning into a huge wheel of time and space, crushing toward the lurking figure. The supreme magic of the Tao of time and space. The wheel of time and space. It could suppress all spacetime. Rumble. As the wheel of time and space rotated, space-time froze at this moment. Before the demon sect expert could react, he was suppressed by Feng Zichen. All space-time that belonged to him was suppressed. Come! Walking in front of the man, Feng Zichen gently hooked his hand, and the demon god flag automatically flew out of the man's body and hung in the air. After learning the lesson last time, Feng Zichen did not refine the demon god flag this time. If he attracted the will of the demon ancestor Rahu again, he would not gain anything this time. Rustle, a mysterious yellow light slowly rose from Feng Zichen's sea of consciousness and gradually formed a mysterious yellow treasure mirror behind his head. The Creation Jade Disc. This was the power of the Creation Jade Disc. The Creation Jade Disc was formed by the origin of the untainted land. It could be said to be the carrier of the heavenly way. All the principles of the untainted land were recorded on it, and it had unimaginable magical effects. One of its abilities, it was to reflect all the great ways. No matter what magic treasure it was, as long as it was placed in front of the Creation Jade Disc, all the principles contained in it would be reflected. Even the Chaos Supreme treasure was no exception. Of course, this was when the Creation Jade Disc was perfected. The current hymn did not have this ability. However, the Creation Jade Disc was not at its peak, but the Demon God flag was not a Chaos Supreme treasure. No matter how extraordinary a mere acquired Supreme treasure was, it could not escape the reflection of the Creation Jade Disc fragment. A mysterious yellow divine light shot out from the treasure mirror formed by the Creation Jade Disc fragment and brushed against the Demon God flag. In the next moment, The materials used to refine the demon god flag, its structure, the method to refine it, the divine restrictions. Everything about the demon god flag was clearly displayed on the surface of the mirror. The aura of the creation jade disc. I have sensed the aura of the creation jade disc. Is it you, Hongjun? At this time, the voice of the demon ancestor Rahu suddenly came from the inside of the demon god flag. At the same time, a terrifying aura swept out and shattered the space-time wheel, and the surrounding space-time resumed its flow. Destroy. Seeing this, Feng Zichen directly slashed with his sword. Suddenly, a vast sword light poured out and evolved into billions of stars. It was extremely bright and shredded the demon god flag and the demon Dao expert who had just recovered from the shock. After doing all this, Feng Zichen immediately retreated and fled into the depths of the void. Just as Feng Zichen left, a huge black handprint suddenly appeared in the void and slammed down on his original position. Rumble! The chi of destruction surged out and the void was annihilated. The laws were shattered, and the great Tao was disintegrated by the palm. Strong, absolutely strong. If this handprint hit Feng Zichen's body, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured and would not be able to recover. Good boy. Looking at the power of this handprint, the demon ancestor's realm is at least above the 9th level of chaotic essence, or even stronger. In the depths of the void, Feng Zichen carefully watched this scene, trying to infer the true strength of the demon ancestor Ra. Unfortunately, there was too little information. From this handprint, he could only see that the strength of the demon ancestor Rahu was really very strong. It was far from what he could compare with. Even a saint might not be his opponent. However, Feng Zichen didn't come out empty-handed. At the very least, he was sure that the demon ancestor Rahu was really tied up by something, which prevented him from truly descending into the untainted land. Otherwise, the matter just now would not be solved with a single palm. After leaving this place, Feng Zichen took out the Good Fortune Jade disc fragment, which clearly recorded everything about the demon god flag. The 49th innate divine restriction was also listed. Is this the demon god flag? Just wait. It won't be long before I give your demon sect a big gift. After getting everything he wanted, Feng Zichen turned and flew to the Nether Realm. As for why he wanted to go to the Nether Realm, that was because the best material to refine the demon god flag was the remains of the Chaos Demon God. Coincidentally, in the Nether Realm, there happened to be many Chaos Demon Gods dragging their remains out of the depths of the 9 underworlds. The demon ancestor Rahu used the innate spiritual objects stained with the blood of the Chaos Demon God as the main material to refine the main body of the demon god flag. Then, he set up a special acquired divine restriction to maximize the residual aura of the demon god in the blood of the demon god. So that when he raised the demon god flag, it was as if a real demon god had been resurrected. In this way, with some unique mind-controlling techniques of the demon sect, he could control the innate ferocious beasts. The innate ferocious beasts originated from the Chaos Demon God and had a natural fear of him. When faced with the aura of the Chaos Demon God at its peak, of course, they would be afraid. They did not dare to resist at all. At this moment, the demon sect secretly guided them with a secret technique. Naturally, they could temporarily control these innate ferocious beasts. Using the innate ferocious beasts' fear of the Chaos Demon God to control them. What a genius idea! However, now he was Feng Zichen's. Wasn't it just a Chaos Demon God? There were at least dozens of them in the Nether Realm. Any one of them could be refined into a demon god flag at the innate spiritual treasure level. That was the Chaos Demon God. No matter how weak it was, it could still be refined into an innate spiritual treasure. In this way, even if the demon sect still had the demon god flag, they could not stop the demon god flag in Feng Zichen's hand. The gap between the innate and the acquired was still very big. It was also a coincidence. If the Chaos Demon God had not broken the seal, Feng Zichen would not have been able to find the remains of the Chaos Demon God. This was fate. The demon sect was destined to be unable to prosper. Just as Feng Zichen's North Star incarnation was heading to the Nether Realm, His original body, Great Emperor Ziwei, was working with Heavenly Emperor Hao Tian to ambush beside the Tree of World. Fellow Taoist Hao Tian. Who do you think the demon sect will send this time? Feng Zichen was bored, so he asked Hao Tian, who was beside him. I don't know. But one thing is certain. The cultivation of the person who will come will not be weak. Hao Tian shook his head and said with a serious expression. From the tone of these two people, it seemed that they were very sure that the experts of the demon sect would definitely come. Wasn't that so? The Tree of World was the pillar of heaven and earth. Once something happened to it, it would definitely endanger the entire heaven and earth, causing the situation of the primordial world to become even more chaotic. This was undoubtedly more beneficial to the demon sect. The more chaotic the primordial world was, the more benefits they would obtain. Of course, even without this, the Tree of World itself was enough to attract the experts of the demon sect. As mentioned earlier, the Tree of World was a natural innate cardinal treasure embryo. As long as it was cut down, its tree body could be refined into an innate cardinal treasure. Just this alone was enough for the evil cult elites to take the risk and try. Although the demon sect had the innate cardinal treasure god-slaying spear, it was too murderous like the 4 immortal slaying swords and could not be used to suppress fate. This made the demon sect unusually need a normal innate cardinal treasure to suppress fate. Coincidentally, the Tree of World fulfilled this requirement. What was more coincidental was that because of the restraint of the Chaos Fiend God in the Great Chaos, the Heavenly Tao did not have the energy to take care of the primordial world. This gave the demon sect an opportunity to make a move. The last day's domain around the Tree of World could block Daluo Jingxian and Sage to Be, but it definitely could not block the experts of the half-step primordial chaos level. Besides, the Tree of World was not protected by the last day's domain. It was only used to drive away flies. The true defense of the Tree of World was the attention of the Heavenly Tao. Originally, this was the most powerful defense. But who would have thought that the Heavenly Tao suddenly could not make a move? This was one of the few opportunities to make a move on the Tree of World. It was believed that the experts of the demon sect would definitely not let go of this opportunity. Even many of the 3,000 guests of the Purple Cloud Palace and the supreme experts of the primordial era were secretly spying on the Tree of World. The temptation of an innate cardinal treasure was enough to make many people take the risk. Chapter 551. It was because of this that Feng Zichen and Hao Yin would join forces to ambush here. No matter who it was, anyone who dared to cut down the Tree of World to refine magic treasures would definitely be killed by the two of them. After all, for rulers like Feng Zichen and Hao Yin, the more stable the primordial world was, the more comfortable their lives would be. Fellow Taoist Hao Yin, what do you think if the demon ancestor comes in person? Then what will the two of us do? Suddenly, Feng Zichen thought of a possibility and asked Hao Yin with a serious face. The demon ancestor Rahu was not someone that the two of them could deal with together. What else can we do? We can only fight to the death. If the two of us escape, I'm afraid the primordial world will not tolerate us. Hearing that, Hao Yin replied in annoyance. What's wrong with this person? Doesn't he know how to say something nice? He's always saying something discouraging. If the demon ancestor really came, not to mention whether they could escape from the hands of the demon ancestor, even if they really did escape, what could they do? Now that the saint was not here, the two of them were the biggest existences in the primordial world. If something big happened to the primordial world during this period, the two of them would have to bear all the responsibility. If the Tree of World was really cut down by the demon ancestor, causing the world to be out of balance, the boundless karma would definitely be on their heads. At that time, not to mention being one step closer to becoming the primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, even if they could retain their current strength, it would be good enough. In order to prevent this from happening, therefore, no matter what price they had to pay, Feng Zichen and Hao Yin would risk their lives to protect the world. Even if they would die because of this. Dying in battle was better than escaping at the last minute. The advantage of the Heavenly Tao was not so easy to take. Since they had accepted the karmic position of the supreme of heaven and earth and enjoyed the benefits it brought, they naturally had to bear the corresponding responsibilities. They wanted benefits but did not want to bear the responsibility. How could there be such a good thing in the world? Someone's coming. As the two of them spoke, there was a slight fluctuation in the void. Immediately, the two of them stopped talking at the same time. They held their breaths and restrained their auras to the limit, silently waiting for the person to appear. A sneak attack also required timing. Only by doing so could one achieve the greatest effect. A strand of pitch-black devil energy silently floated up into appearance from space, and it directly charged into the last day's domain and flashed swiftly towards the world tree. During this entire process, the last day's domain that was sufficient to cause a quasi-saint to fall into the state of decay actually didn't react at all, and it allowed that strand of black chi to swiftly pass by and arrive before the world tree in the blink of an eye. From this, it could be seen that this black chi was at least half-step primordial chaos. If the tree of world did not hold up the sky, it could directly whip an existence like the black gas to death with a branch. There was no need for Feng Zichen and Hao Tian to make a move. Unfortunately, the world tree's power, which was comparable to that of primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian, could not be unleashed at all. Supporting the heavens. It wasn't that easy. The pressure of the 33 heavens required the world tree to expend all of its strength to support it. In this way, he would have extra strength to fight against the enemy. This is the world tree? The legendary chaos spirit root. It's indeed powerful. When the black gas arrived beside the world tree, it suddenly stopped and turned into a blurry figure. This is the world tree? The legendary chaos spirit root. It's indeed powerful. After sensing it carefully, the black shadow seemed to sigh and say, "Primordial chaos. No matter what. It had nothing to do with being weak. When you fully mature, I'm afraid you'll be comparable to the legendary chaos treasure. Unfortunately, our devil sect can't wait any longer. We need you now." At this moment, even Feng Zichen and Hao Tian, who were far away from the black shadow, could clearly sense the greed in the black shadow's eyes. Who wouldn't be tempted by a Khanate treasure? He's about to make a move. Should we make a move? In the dark, Hao Tian said to Feng Zichen. Wait a little longer. Feng Zichen shook his head and said as he held back Hao Tian, who was about to make a move. The world tree was an existence in the primordial chaos realm. Even if it couldn't make a move, its essence was still there. Its trunk was extremely hard. Even if a half-step primordial chaos expert attacked it for hundreds of years, he might not be able to hurt it at all. Only a primordial chaos expert could hurt a primordial chaos expert. Therefore, in theory, the devil sect expert shouldn't be able to cut down the world tree. However, since he was here, he must be fully prepared and had the means to cut down the world tree. Since this means could cut down the world tree at the primordial chaos level, wouldn't it be easy to kill two of them who weren't in the primordial chaos realm? Therefore, before the other party's trump card was completely exposed, it was best for him and Hao Tian not to act rashly. Boom! Boom! The black shadow tried to attack the tree of world twice. Not only did it not cause any damage, but it was also shaken off by the huge recoil. The black chi protecting its body dissipated, revealing its true appearance. It was a young man with a fierce face. His killing intent was so strong that it even formed an endless wave of blood in the surrounding void. His killing intent was even stronger than the blood sea Styx's. Demon Gaji-du. The moment this person's true identity was exposed, Hao Tian's expression changed and he subconsciously called out this person's name. Fortunately, although he was shocked, he didn't lose his mind and reveal his whereabouts. Ji-du. He's Demon Gaji-du? The legendary right-hand man of the demon ancestor, second only to the demon ancestor in the devil sect. Hearing the name Ji-du, Feng Zichen was a little curious and quickly confirmed with Hao Tian beside him. He was born relatively late and hadn't experienced that era, so he didn't know much about the devil sect. What he had heard so far came from legends and the words of predecessors. However, Hao Tian was different. Although he kept a low profile, he was really an antique. He had lived for a long time and had been by the side of the Tao ancestor. He knew a lot about the secrets of the world. Therefore, just as Feng Zichen was pondering about the origin of the person opposite him, Hao Tian had already recognized him and told him about his origin. "Yes, it's him." Hao Tian nodded and replied in a deep voice. Compared to the Nether River Patriarch, this was the real killing star. He could be said to be the #1 killing god born in the primordial world. Of course, from his name, it could be seen that the demon god Jidu was born as a star god. He was a Khanate demon god born on the Jidu star. This person was born in the early ancient times, after Wangshu and before Dijun. Because he was born with the Khanate killing Dao, his killing intent was too strong, so he wasn't liked by the Khanate gods. Therefore, Jidu entered the Devil's sect in a rage. After that, after countless years of bitter cultivation, Jidu finally became a supreme demon god. He roamed the primordial world, killed countless people, and made a name for himself. It made many Khanate gods tremble. After the war between Dao and Devil, Jidu disappeared without a trace. They thought that this person had already died in this battle. However, they didn't expect that not only did he not die, but his cultivation level had also improved greatly. He had cultivated to the half-step primordial chaos realm and was only one step away from becoming a primordial chaos Daluo. That's right, Jidu's realm. He was even stronger than Feng Zichen. He was infinitely close to the primordial chaos Daluo Xianxia. No, to be precise, his realm had already entered the primordial chaos realm. It was just that his origin had not finished transforming, so his realm was still at the half-step primordial chaos realm. To break through the realm after Daluo Xianxia, in addition to reaching the realm, one also needed enough origin to support it. The transformation of the primordial chaos realm required a huge amount of power. Tai had the help of the Sun Star, Dijun had the help of the Heaven Realm, and Dijiang had the help of the primordial world. Only then could they complete the transformation in a short time and cultivate to the primordial chaos Daluo Xianxian realm. But what about the Devil's sect? They had nothing. As the defeated party in the war between Dao and Devil, the Devil's sect no longer had a foothold in the primordial world and was driven out as a whole. The control of heaven and earth had completely fallen into the hands of the Shen sect. Therefore, there was really no shortcut on the path of cultivation of the Devil's sect. They needed to condense their origin bit by bit. Otherwise, with Jidu's strength, he would have cultivated to the primordial chaos Daluo Xianxian realm long ago. He would not have faced such a situation. This was the price a loser should pay. The primordial chaos is the primordial chaos. It's far beyond what I can reach now. After sighing, Jidu no longer tried to attack the Tree of World. Instead, he flipped his hand and took out a blood-colored spear. In an instant, monstrous murderous aura spread out, illuminating the world in the color of blood. The void could not withstand the murderous aura and was silently destroyed. The great path and the laws also disappeared. Everything turned into a state of nothingness. God-killing spear. God-killing spear, a Khanate supreme treasure. The blood-colored spear in Jidu's hand. It was the #1 killing supreme treasure in the primordial world. God-killing spear, a Khanate supreme treasure. The reason why the God-killing spear was called the #1 killing supreme treasure in the primordial world was that it was different from other Khanate supreme treasures. It had no other ability other than killing. It gave up everything and only retained the purest killing power. This created the God-killing spear's reputation as the #1 killing spear. It was a legendary Khanate supreme treasure that could hurt a saint. Hiss! In the dark, Feng Zichen and Hao Tian saw Jidu take out the God-killing spear. They were so shocked that their faces changed drastically. They could not help but gasp. It was no joke to be poked by the God-killing spear. Even a saint would be injured, let alone them. Even if they did not die, they would be left with an indelible Dao injury. Good boy! The demon sect has really put in a lot of effort. They even took out the God-killing spear. Both of them were speechless. Ever since the immortal slaying four swords were taken away by the Dao ancestor, the God-killing spear had become the only supreme treasure of the demon sect. It was their foundation and would not be used easily. They did not expect the demon sect to take it out for the Tree of World. However, it made sense. With the demon sect's current situation, they could only use the Khanate's supreme treasure, the god-killing spear, to cut down the Tree of World. After all, Khanate's supreme treasures were on the same level as the primordial chaos. If not, the demon sect could only stare at the Tree of World helplessly. On the other side, after taking out the god-killing spear, Jidu used it as an axe. He poured all his magic power into it and slashed at the Tree of World. This is the time. Do it. Seeing this scene, both of them knew that it was time to strike. At this time, all of Jidu's energy was focused on the god-killing spear, so his body was full of flaws. In order to kill in one blow and to be safe, Feng Zichen directly used the Khanate's supreme treasure, the star map, and blasted it at Jidu. Whoosh! The heavenly cycle star map trembled, and the stars in the sky appeared, forming a bright sea of stars that crashed toward Jidu with a loud rumble. On the other side, Haotian was not to be outdone. With a backhand he pulled out a gorgeous long sword from the void. Boundless sword light shot out, shattering the endless void, and slashed at Jidu's back. So strong. Haotian really hit it well. Seeing this scene, not to mention Jidu, even Feng Zichen was shocked. Haotian was very strong and he knew it. However, the appearance of that gorgeous long sword was somewhat out of Feng Zichen's expectations. The power of this sword was even stronger than Zichen's sword. Was already on par with the 10,000 sword painting. Without a doubt, this was a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure, and it was the top supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure. Haotian really hit it well. If it weren't for dealing with Jidu today, he probably wouldn't have exposed his trump card. But thinking about it, Haotian didn't just hide this sword. Thinking about it, as the Tao child of the Tao ancestor, how could he not have any wealth? Not only did he have it, but it was also very rich. Even if he didn't, the Tao ancestor would also buy him a very rich net worth. Don't be naive. Did you really think that the treasures that the Tao ancestor gave to the Haotian Jade Pool in the Purple Cloud Palace were all that he had? Of course not. Although those treasures were precious, they were obviously not worthy of the wealth that a celestial emperor should have. How could he rule the world empty-handed? In secret, Tao ancestor Hongjun had given these two people many benefits. From this sword one could tell. Humph! You want to plot against me with just the two of you? How ridiculous! I've been guarding against you for a long time. Just as the two people's attacks were about to land on Jidu, he suddenly laughed. Then he directly turned around, using the spear as an axe, waved the god-killing spear, and slashed fiercely in the direction of the two people. Whoosh! A dazzling blood-red light bloomed from the god-killing spear, and it collided fiercely with the two supernatural powers that came blasting over. Rumble! In the next moment, the sea of stars collapsed, the sword light dissipated, and the void no longer existed. A terrifying power swept out, shaking both sides back. Haotian, Ziwei, two emperors? The two of you are really something. You don't care about your reputation and joined forces to ambush me here. If I didn't bring the god-killing spear today, I'm afraid I would have fallen into your trap. Looking at the two of them, Jidu said with a cold smile. To be honest, after recognizing the identity of these two people, he was really shocked. He was not surprised that he was stopped by others. This was all within his expectations. But he did not expect that the dignified sovereigns of heaven and earth, the top great supernatural powers of the untainted land, the celestial emperor and great emperor Ziwei, would actually do such a thing as a sneak attack. A sneak attack? Was this what a celestial emperor should do? Did they still want their dignity? Chapter 552. Despicable. To think that the two of you are the supreme beings of heaven and earth. How could you be so shameless as to join forces to launch a sneak attack? How despicable! Jidu could not help but feel a lingering fear. If he did not have the god-slaying spear, he would have died in the hands of these two juniors. The two of them were truly shameless. Regarding this, Feng Zichen and Haotian were unmoved. Nonsense, as an emperor, the most important thing was to be thick-skinned. It would be strange if Jidu's words could move the two of them and make them feel ashamed. Senior is a figure of the same generation as the Dao ancestor. As juniors, we know that we are no match for him. So we joined forces to fight against Senior. Why not? Haotian asked in surprise. Sharp-tongued. With a cold snort, Jidu disdained to argue with the two of them. He then said with killing intent, "Since the two of you are here, don't leave. I'll kill you first, then cut down the world tree." If he killed Feng Zichen and Haotian, the demon sect might be able to enter the heavenly court and regain control of the primordial world. With this thought in mind, Jidu clenched the god-slaying spear in his hand and was about to stab the two of them. "You want to kill us? I'm afraid you alone are not enough. Demon god Jidu, you created chaos in the primordial world. Today, it's your turn to face the tribulation. 9 heavens 10 earths demon-slaying array rise." It was also at this moment that Feng Zichen and Haotian activated the demon-slaying array that they had set up beforehand. As the name suggested, the 9 heavens 10 earths demon-slaying array was a Khanate array that was specially used to deal with the demon sect. This demon-slaying array, it was a formation specially created by the Dao ancestor after he merged the Dao and was worried that the demon sect would rise again. It was extremely powerful and specialized in countering the demon sect. Since its birth, it had never been shown to anyone. It was only because Haotian had been by Dao ancestor Hongjuan's side all year round that he could learn some of the ingenuity of this formation from him. That's right, this formation was provided by Haotian. Feng Zichen had a Khanate array, but there was no array that was specially used to deal with the demon sect other than the celestial sect. Rumble. Following the activation of the formation, the heavens and the earth changed. Layers of heavenly palaces appeared and continents were born. They formed the layout of the 9 heavens and 10 earths, trapping Jidu within. Dong. It was as if the thunder god was beating a drum. In the 9 heavens, demon-slaying divine lightning appeared, boundless and boundless, locking onto the demon god Jidu from afar. At the same time, demon slayer divine flames gushed out from the ground and swept towards demon god Jidu in an endless stream. This was Feng Zichen and Haotian's killer move. The previous attack was just a smokescreen. Both of them could imagine that the demon sect would definitely attack the world tree. The demon sect was not a fool. How could they not think of someone coming to stop them? Jidu's previous reaction had already proved this point. If he hadn't been on guard in advance, Jidu wouldn't have had time to react in the face of their sneak attack. Even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. Therefore, Feng Zichen and Haotian made 2 preparations. On the one hand, they set up the demon-slaying formation in advance. On the other hand, they hid in the void to prepare for a sneak attack. One of them was in the open while the other was in the dark. Small tricks. In the demon-slaying formation, Jidu looked at the demon-slaying divine lightning and the surging demon-slaying divine flames with disdain. With a sweep of the god-slaying spear in his hand, a sharp killing intent was released and swept in all directions. In the next moment, the lightning in the sky was shattered and the divine flames were extinguished. Only the sharp killing intent remained, wantonly destroying everything in the 9 heavens 10 earths. With the god-slaying spear, even a saint would dare to fight with me. How can a mere Xianxia grand formation do anything to me? Junior, let's see how I'll break your formation. With the god-slaying spear in hand, Jidu's strength could be said to have increased greatly. Even if the real primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian came, if he didn't have a Khanate cardinal treasure in his hand, he wouldn't dare to say that he could really defeat him. Therefore, Jidu could be said to be at the peak of his strength since he was born. However, the 9 heavens 10 earths demon-slaying formation was, after all, a formation created by a Taoist ancestor after Dao unification. It could be said to be mysterious and unfathomable. How could it be so easy to deal with? After the Taoist ancestor's Dao unification, although his realm was still primordial chaos, his strength was not. That was the realm of heavenly Dao, even stronger than ordinary chaos demon gods. A formation created in such a state was absolutely terrifying. Boom, 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 the god-slaying spear in Jidu's hand was constantly waving. First, it pierced through the 9 heavens, then pierced through the 10 earths. Soon, the space created by the demon-slaying formation was smashed into pieces. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the demon-slaying formation was broken by Jidu now. At the moment when the 9 heavens 10 earths was completely destroyed, Feng Zichen and Hao Tian stepped forward together, stepped into the demon-slaying formation, and activated the formation with all their strength. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Under their full strength, the heavens and the earth returned to chaos, and a strange chaotic space was formed. It was boundless, ancient, and vast. Rumble. The chaotic chi surged, setting off huge waves, and slammed toward demon god Jidu, trying to assimilate me with the chaos? What a joke! In the chaos, Jidu raised the god-slaying spear and stabbed it downward. Violent killing intent swept out, forming blood-red ripples, and shattered the chaotic chi. Looking around, there was blood-red killing intent everywhere in the chaos. They were tightly entangled with the chaotic chi to prevent it from condensing. Seeing this, Feng Zichen and Hao Tian's expressions didn't change, and they continued to activate the formation. Rumble. Suddenly, there was the sound of thunder in the depths of the chaos. The atmosphere became oppressive at this moment, as if a great terror was about to descend. Rumble. Rumble. The sound of thunder from the depths of the chaos became more rapid and vast, and heaven and earth became more and more oppressive. That is, in the demon-slaying formation, Jidu suddenly felt a chill and couldn't help but look up. Right at this moment, a wisp of purple light appeared from within the chaos. That was thunder, purple thunder. Heavenly thunder of purple heaven. Seeing this, Jidu's expression changed drastically, and there was panic on his face for the first time. The heavenly thunder of purple heaven, also known as the thunder of heavenly punishment, was the supreme superpower of Tao ancestor Hongjun, and it was also the strongest heavenly thunder of the untainted land. Note, Du Tian heavenly thunder is the top thunder technique in the chaos. Its power was enough to severely injure a sage. Back then, many demon sect experts had died under the heavenly thunder of purple heaven, and Jidu had a deep memory of it. Now that he saw the heavenly thunder of purple heaven again, the fear of the past surfaced in his heart again. How could Jidu not be afraid? Summoning the heavenly thunder of purple heaven was the strongest technique of the 9 heavens 10 earths demon-slaying formation. It was also because of this that Feng Zichen and Hao Tian had the confidence to kill Jidu Rumble. The heavenly thunder of purple heaven came quickly. When Jidu first saw it, there was only a purple light in the chaos, but when he came back to his senses, the heavenly thunder of purple heaven was ready. The entire chaos. It had been dyed purple by the heavenly thunder of purple heaven. Rumble. A bright purple light flashed, and the heavenly thunder of purple heaven, which was dozens of feet in size, suddenly fell and struck at Jidu. Break for me. Looking at the heavenly thunder of purple heaven, Jidu subconsciously clenched the god-killing spear in his hand and stabbed at it with all his strength. Bang. Blood and purple intertwined, and killing intent and thunder competed. Wisps of purple thunder followed the god-killing spear's body and attacked Jidu's body. Sizzle, the violent thunder struck, and the black clothes on Jidu's body only lasted for a moment before they were torn into countless pieces. Without the protection of the black clothes, the heavenly thunder of purple heaven directly poured into Jidu's body, crazily destroying everything in his body, including his primordial spirit and true spirit. In the blink of an eye, Jidu's body became a piece of charcoal. However, it was a pity that Jidu looked miserable from the outside. But in fact, he did not suffer any serious injuries. The heavenly thunder of purple heaven was powerful, but the god-killing spear was not weak either. After being weakened by the god-killing spear, the heavenly thunder of purple heaven that struck Jidu did not have much power left. Other than making his appearance look miserable, it did not leave any fatal injuries. Again! Seeing that the heavenly thunder of purple heaven was effective, Feng Zichen and Hao Yin activated the array again, and evolved another heavenly thunder of purple heaven and continued to strike Ji-Du boom. Boom, boom. Bolts of heavenly thunder of purple heaven struck down, and even with the god-killing spear in front of him, Ji-Du gradually could not hold on. It was not easy to activate a primordial treasure. Every time he blocked a heavenly thunder of purple heaven, the Dharma power in Ji-Du's body was rapidly decreasing. When his Dharma power was exhausted, it would be the time of his death. In terms of Dharma power, Feng Zichen and Hao Yin could not compare to Ji-Du, but as the supremes of heaven and earth, they could receive the blessings of heaven and earth, and their Dharma power was endless, far from what Ji-Du could compare to. Competing in consumption. The two of them could drag Ji-Du to death. Two emperors? This move is a little too much. Just when Ji-Du's Dharma power was about to be exhausted, an incomparably deep voice suddenly came from the void. And at the same time as this voice, an extremely mysterious divine power appeared. Swish, as if eternal night had descended, heaven and earth silently fell into darkness, and everything fell into silence. At this moment, heaven and earth lost its voice, and everything was silent. Crack, crack. In the situation where Feng Zichen and Hao Yin did not react at all, a strange power attacked, and the 9 heavens and 10 earths demon slayer formations suddenly disintegrated, and Ji-Du took the opportunity to escape. Oh no. Seeing this, Feng Zichen was shocked, and hurriedly took out the primordial treasure Zhouxing map. Swish, 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 stars appeared one after another, and bits of starlight scattered, piercing through the darkness and bringing light. Mahakala Demon God. At the moment when the night disappeared, Feng Zichen heard Hao Yin's exclamation. Mahakala Demon God. Obviously, this was the identity of the person who came. Following Hao Yin's line of sight, Feng Zichen saw a black shadow beside Ji-Du. Yes, that's right. This person was a black shadow. He did not transform into a primordial Dao body like other creatures of the primordial world. Instead, he walked in the primordial world with his original body like a primordial beast. This was an exception. It also meant that the Dao he cultivated was not the primordial world's Dao, and it had nothing to do with Pangu. However, the primordial world creatures' bodies must be inextricably linked to Pangu, and they could not exceed the limits of the 81 Dao forms. This person was not among them, which meant that he was either the reincarnation of the Chaos Demon God, or the successor of the Chaos Demon God. His background was quite impressive. Mahakala Demon Sect greets the 2 imperial emperors. The deep voice came from the black shadow, and it clearly entered the ears of Feng Zichen and Hao Yin. Ziwei, Hao Yin, greets the senior. Feng Zichen and Hao Yin bowed respectfully. This was a true senior who had attained the Dao in the early primordial era. He had once participated in the calamity of the primordial world and was one of the oldest primordial godfiends. Legend had it that a long time ago, when the primordial world had just been created, Zhouxing had not yet been born, and the world was dark. At that time, there was only night and no day in the primordial world. Over time, in the endless night, a great god was born. He was the embodiment of the night, the Mahakala Demon God. One could imagine how noble such a background was. If the appearance of the day had not been, with the identity of the Mahakala Demon God, he could be said to be the embodiment of the sky. He was also a natural celestial emperor. Unfortunately, with the appearance of the sun, half of his luck evaporated, so he had no chance of becoming the celestial emperor. However, this did not affect his strength. As one of the oldest primordial god fiends in the primordial world, the power of the Mahakala Demon God was beyond doubt. He was the earliest Daoyuo Jingxian of the primordial world, a pioneer on the path of the great Dao. The current cultivation realm of the primordial world was perfected by the Mahakala Demon God and other ancient primordial god fiends. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were Dao ancestors. For the sake of full attendance, I'll change it later. I hope everyone can understand. One could imagine how noble such a background was. If the appearance of the day had not been, with the identity of the Mahakala Demon God, he could be said to be the embodiment of the sky. He was also a natural celestial emperor. Unfortunately, with the appearance of the sun, half of his luck evaporated, so he had no chance of becoming the celestial emperor. However, this did not affect his strength. As one of the oldest primordial god fiends in the primordial world, the power of the Mahakala demon god was beyond doubt. He was the earliest Daluo Jingxian of the primordial world, a pioneer on the path of the great Tao. One could imagine how noble such a background was. If the appearance of the day had not been, with the identity of the Mahakala demon god, he could be said to be the embodiment of the sky. He was also a natural celestial emperor. Unfortunately, with the appearance of the sun, half of his luck evaporated, so he had no chance of becoming the celestial emperor. However, this did not affect his strength. As one of the oldest primordial god fiends in the primordial world, the power of the Mahakala demon god was beyond doubt. He was the earliest Daluo Jingxian of the primordial world, a pioneer on the path of the great Tao. One could imagine how noble such a background was. If the appearance of the day had not been, with the identity of the Mahakala demon god, he could be said to be the embodiment of the sky. He was also a natural celestial emperor. Unfortunately, with the appearance of the sun, half of his luck evaporated, so he had no chance of becoming the celestial emperor. However, this did not affect his strength. As one of the oldest primordial god fiends in the primordial world. Chapter 553. In terms of cultivation and status, the Mahakala demon god and the demon ancestor Rahu were on the same level. There was not much difference. Moreover, due to their doctrines, the demon sect was not favored by heaven and earth. Although they had a chance to prosper, they could not last as long as the Shen sect. The demon sect was extremely arrogant and had the momentum to sweep through the primordial world. However, once the chaos calmed down and the saints returned from outer space, the situation that the demon sect had created with great difficulty would be destroyed in an instant. As the top expert of the primordial world, the Mahakala demon god could not understand this. Even so, he still chose to join the demon sect. There must be a problem. Perhaps the Mahakala demon god and the demon ancestor Rahu had reached some unspeakable agreement in secret. Otherwise, even if the Mahakala demon god wanted to join a force, he should join the Xian sect, which had a promising future. Instead of joining the demon sect, which had the responsibility of destroying the primordial world and could never truly prosper. Wasn't this equivalent to being a eunuch for 12 years and joining the national army for 49 years? Emperors, since I'm here, I won't return empty-handed. So, you should leave, lest you lose your lives in vain. Looking at Feng Zichen and Hao Tian, the Mahakala demon god said very calmly. His words showed that he did not care about the two of them at all. It was as if he was not facing the two supreme beings of heaven and earth, but some random cat or dog. His tone was shockingly arrogant. Even a saint would not dare to say that. Boasting. Arrogant. Hearing that, Feng Zichen and Hao Tian's expressions changed and they were furious. Not to mention their identities, just in terms of cultivation, one was a half-step primordial chaos, and the other was a perfected sage-to-be. They could be said to be the peak of the primordial world. With such cultivation, they could be considered top experts at any time. When had they ever been looked down upon like that? No, this was not looking down on them. This was simply a deliberate humiliation. As long as the Mahakala demon god took the two of them seriously, he would not say such contemptuous words. But, you don't believe me? Looking at their expressions, the Mahakala heavenly demon god smiled and did not explain. Black chi surged around his body and condensed into a black palm, reaching toward the two of them. He wanted to prove with his actions that what he said was true. Feng Zichen and Hao Yin were nothing in front of him. Rumble. The Mahakala heavenly demonic god pressed down with his palm, and boundless darkness attacked. Light was extinguished, and the world seemed to have fallen into eternal night at this moment. Everything fell silent. In the darkness, Feng Zichen and Hao Tian encountered the greatest danger. In their perception, the great Tao, the laws, and the spiritual energy had all disappeared. Only the endless night remained. Loneliness, despair, and other negative emotions surged into their hearts, shaking their Taoist hearts. Even the great path that they had painstakingly cultivated was showing signs of decline at this moment. This was the tribulation of Tao decline. It was a calamity even more terrifying than the 5 decay of the celestial being. Once the great Tao declined, its strength would definitely decline as well. When the great Tao decayed, its life would come to an end, and there was no way to escape. Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. The Mahakala heavenly demon god has attained Tao. With just one strike, the only one who could make the two of them unable to resist was the Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. And it was not an ordinary Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. He must be an expert among them. At this moment, Feng Zichen and Haoyan suddenly realized that the other party's strength had already transcended heaven and earth and reached the level of Tao. It was far from what they could contend with. In the dark night, the power of despair grew stronger and stronger. It was about to invade Feng Zichen and Haoyan's Taoist hearts and take them down with it, completely falling into eternal sleep. Senior is indeed a senior. His strength is indeed far beyond ours. But if you think you can kill the two of us with this, you are underestimating us too much. Seeing that the situation was getting more and more dangerous, Feng Zichen and Haoyan did not hold back and burst out together. Wisps of sacred Tao light bloomed from their bodies, emitting extremely shocking fluctuations. It pushed the two of them to the level of Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian in one fell swoop. The Tao light was sacred and extremely bright. Like the sun, it tore through the long night, drove away the darkness, and brought light to heaven and earth again. At the same time, wherever the light passed, all despair, loneliness, and other negative emotions quickly melted like snow exposed to the sun. Is this the power of rank? The Mahakala heavenly demon god stared at the two people who had escaped and said with some surprise. The most powerful thing about Feng Zichen and Haoyan was not their cultivation realm, nor was it their magic treasures, but their rank. The position of Celestial Emperor and the position of Great Emperor Ziwei were the top ranks in the untainted land. What they possessed was no less than the power of Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. The supremes of heaven and earth had their own majesty. The weak, how could they control heaven and earth and rule the untainted land? Therefore, no matter who it was, even if it was a mortal with no cultivation, from the moment they became the supremes of heaven and earth, they would automatically obtain power that was comparable to Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. Feng Zichen and Haoyan dared to face the demon sect, and it was not that they did not have the capital to be arrogant. It's getting more and more interesting. The two half-step Primordial Chaos suddenly became two Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. Instead of being afraid, the Mahakala heavenly demon god became even more excited. Previously, he did not take the two of them seriously at all. The current situation was worthy of him being a little more serious. F*CK, F*C, a plant. This Mahakala heavenly demon god is too good at pretending. Seeing the Mahakala heavenly demon god's performance, Feng Zichen was really speechless. He had been in the untainted land for so long, but he had never seen such an arrogant person. Even the demon ancestor Rahu was not as good as him. These were two Primordial Chaos Daoyuo Jingxian. They were the strongest existences known now. Can't you take this seriously? Why are you acting so disdainful? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to set off your strength? It was not that Feng Zichen looked down on the Mahakala heavenly demon god, but how long had it been since the primordial era? No matter how strong he was, there had to be a limit. At most, he was at the 7th or 8th level of primordial chaos. As for existences above the 9th level of primordial chaos, only the Tao ancestor, the demon ancestor, and Yang Mei were known. Tao ancestor Hongjuan's Tao integration was equivalent to the heavenly Tao assisting his cultivation. Naturally, his cultivation progress was extremely fast. The demon ancestor Rahu inherited the legacy of the chaos demon god, so his cultivation progress was naturally not slow. There was no need to mention great immortal Yang Mei. Her realm in her previous life was unfathomable, far exceeding the primordial chaos Tao realm. Increasing her cultivation level was as simple as eating and drinking to her. Her realm was said to be the highest in the untainted land, even above the Tao ancestor and the demon ancestor. These three Khanate great gods had such conditions to cultivate above the 9th level of primordial chaos. But what did the Mahakala heavenly demon god have? He did not have anything. Feng Zichen dared to say that unless he was the reincarnation of the chaos demon god, his realm would definitely not exceed the 3rd level of primordial chaos. The conditions of the primordial era were there. Without the support of the origin of heaven and earth, his cultivation progress was imaginable. One had to know that even a saint, without the support of the providence of heaven and earth, would find it extremely difficult to improve. He, the Mahakala heavenly demon god, was barehanded. Could he be stronger than a saint who was supported by the heavenly Tao? As for the Mahakala being the reincarnation of the chaos demon god, that would be a joke. The reincarnation of the chaos demon god was actually in such dire straits that he had to be a fighter for the demon ancestor Rao. If Feng Zichen were him, he would probably be too ashamed to face anyone. He, a primordial chaos expert. Then it will be interesting to kill him. With a low laugh, the Mahakala heavenly demon god attacked. He waved his hands continuously, and laws spread out, distorting heaven and earth. The night came silently. Feng Zichen and Hao Tian seemed to fall into the abyss as their bodies kept falling. How did he do it? He hurriedly took out the Zhouxing painting to stabilize his sinking body. Feng Zichen's expression was a little heavy. This divine ability was too strange. He really did not notice it at all beforehand, and he fell for it just like that. It was also fortunate that the Mahakala heavenly demon god's strength was limited and was not much stronger than the two of them. Otherwise, just this search alone would be enough to destroy the two of them. On the other side, Hao Tian held a long sword in his hand and slashed straight ahead, wanting to break through the night. Rumble! As the sword light crisscrossed, the 33 heavens appeared one after another, deducing the power of the world and shattering all the darkness. Unfortunately, although Hao Tian's sword was powerful, it did not have the slightest effect. Outside the night, it was still night. It was boundless and had no end. Boom! Seeing that Hao Tian's attack was ineffective, Feng Zichen suddenly shook the Zhouxing painting. In an instant, hundreds of millions of stars appeared, forming a vast galaxy that hung above the sky. The galaxy was vast and boundless. It rushed forward, intending to cover the entire sky and find the end of the night. However, although the galaxy was vast, compared to the night sky, the stars could only be used as decorations. How could they be compared to it? Feng Zichen's probing this time was destined to be fruitless. His heart sank slightly. Feng Zichen immediately made a decision and directly detonated the galaxy. Suddenly, hundreds of millions of stars exploded together, and endless brilliance was born. It was more dazzling than the sun, completely illuminating this side of the world. This is, when he saw the true face of this side of the world, Feng Zichen's eyes could not help but shrink, and his heart sank. As far as the eye could see, there was a vast and boundless black curtain above their heads. All the darkness came from there. Just now, they were sucked into this black curtain, which was why they were unable to escape. This is a Khanate cardinal treasure? How could the Mahakala demon god have a Khanate cardinal treasure? Looking at the black curtain, Hao Tian's face was filled with shock. If he remembered correctly, according to the information he received from the Purple Cloud Palace, the Mahakala demon god should not have a Khanate cardinal treasure. His natal magic treasure should be a supreme-grade Khanate spirit treasure, the Black Sky Divine Banner. But what was with the Khanate cardinal treasure in front of him? Where did the Mahakala demon god get it? Moreover, when did Khanate cardinal treasures become so worthless that they could be encountered so easily? Didn't the Tao ancestors say that? In the primordial world, there were only a few Khanate cardinal treasures. They could not be obtained without a supreme opportunity. But what was the situation now? The 4 people present, except for him, could be said to have a Khanate cardinal treasure. Could it be that the Tao ancestor was lying to him? Or could it be that he had come to a fake primordial world? At this moment, Haotian could not help but fall into self-doubt. Speaking of which, he was unlucky. There were not many Khanate cardinal treasures outside the celestial sect of wonders. But today he had encountered almost all of them. Phew, fellow Taoist Haotian, I'm afraid the two of us will be in danger today. If you still have any trump cards, hurry up and use them. If you're too late, you won't have the chance to use them. Staring at the black curtain, Feng Zichen took a deep breath and said to Haotian with an unprecedentedly solemn expression. Haotian could not recognize the origin of this item. But he recognized it. It was because he recognized it that he had a bad feeling. This magic treasure was called the Curtain of Night. It was not a Khanate cardinal treasure, but the supreme-grade Chaos Spirit treasure. Of course, the supreme-grade Chaos Spirit treasure referred to the previous Curtain of Night. The current Curtain of Night had been severely injured in the heaven-splitting tribulation. Its level was barely maintained in the ranks of Chaos Spirit treasure. But even so, its power was extremely terrifying. It was comparable to a middle-grade Khanate cardinal treasure. As for why Feng Zichen could recognize the origin of the Curtain of Night, that was because he had seen this magic treasure before. Chaos Spirit Treasure Curtain of Night. It was the eternal spiritual treasure of the Dark Night Demon God. And Feng Zichen, who had the brand of the Chaos Demon God, was extremely familiar with the Chaos Demon God. Naturally, he could recognize the magic treasure in their hands. Moreover, in Panga's left eye, Feng Zichen had experienced Panga's life. He had even witnessed with his own eyes how the Curtain of Night was shattered by Panga's axe. How could he not recognize its origin? Although the current Curtain of Night had fallen a lot because of the injury, its origin had not changed. As a result, Feng Zichen recognized its origin at a glance. Since the treasure in front of him was the Curtain of Night, then the identity of the Mahakala demon god was self-evident. The Chaos Demon God Dark Night. Although the Mahakala demon god was powerful, he could not control the Chaos Spirit treasure before the Dark Night demon god died. Because he did not have the ability to erase the mark left by the Dark Night demon god in the Curtain of Night. Besides, even without the mark of the Dark Night demon god, the Curtain of Night could not recognize the Mahakala demon god as its master. If the Curtain of Night was shattered, just like the Chaos Bead, it would turn into countless innate spiritual treasures. The great dark heavenly demon god would be able to repair it with ease. However, the Curtain of Night only fell in level and was not completely shattered. The Mahakala demon god had no reason to reclaim the Curtain of Night. Because the Curtain of Night looked down on him. The Chaos Spirit treasure also had its own pride. How could he, who had followed the Dark Night demon god for so many years, take a fancy to the Mahakala demon god who was weak? Moreover, the Dark Night demon god was not dead. How could the Curtain of Night submit to others? Moreover, looking at the way the Mahakala demon god activated the Curtain of Night, it did not look like it had just obtained the Curtain of Night. All of these meant that the Mahakala demon god in front of him was one of the 3,000 Chaos demon gods, the Dark Night demon god. Only he could make the Chaos Spirit treasure Curtain of Night submit so willingly. Chapter 554. However, judging from the current strength of the Mahakala demon god, he should not be the reincarnation of the Dark Night demon god, but had been possessed by the Dark Night demon god. If not, his cultivation level would not be so low after such a long time had passed since the beginning of ancient times. Thinking back to the recent time when the Chaos demon god took the opportunity of the heavenly Tao's negligence and was preparing to possess the great mediums of the primordial world, it was not hard to imagine that the Mahakala demon god had been unlucky. It was because he had fused with a part of the true spirit of the Dark Night demon god that the strength of the Mahakala demon god had soared in a short period of time. He had broken through the layers of shackles and cultivated to the 4th level of primordial chaos. Otherwise, no matter how heaven-defying the opportunity of the Mahakala demon god was, it was impossible for his realm to reach such a level. He could even fight 1 against 2 and still have the upper hand. The Dark Knight demon god had possessed the Mahakala demon god and completed the plan of rebirth. He had even replaced the identity of the Mahakala demon god in the primordial world and walked in the world with his face. And the chaos spirit treasure darkness, after sensing its master's aura, would return to his side without the summoning of the Dark Knight demon god. In this way, the Dark Knight demon god had completely returned. It was a pity that the Mahakala demon god had cultivated for hundreds of millions of years for nothing. It was really sad and lamentable. What happened next was much simpler. As the spokesperson of the chaos demon god in the primordial world, of course, it was also possible that Rahu himself was the reincarnation of the chaos demon god. In short, there was a great connection between the demon god and the chaos demon god. According to this, the demon sect and the chaos demon god were also inextricably linked. Therefore, when the demon god Rahu learned that the Dark Knight demon god had returned, he asked him to help the demon sect deal with the celestial sect of wonders. How could the Dark Knight demon god stand by and do nothing? In this way, it led to the current situation. Sigh. Although he had expected this, Feng Zichen still sighed when he saw it with his own eyes. What kind of expert was the Mahakala demon god? He had once dominated an era and had the bearing of a celestial emperor. However, he was gone just like that, and his body was taken over by someone else. It really made people sigh. In fact, Feng Zichen had a rough idea of how the Mahakala demon god was taken over by the darkness demon god. Others might be able to withstand the possession of a chaos fiend celestial or even kill it. However, against the Dark Knight demonic god, the great dark heavens demon god could be said to be completely helpless. It could even be said that the great dark sky demon god was the vessel of the Dark Knight demon god. Speaking of which, the Mahakala fiend celestial had asked for it. It was formed from the remains of the Dark Knight demon god, so it was naturally countered by the Dark Knight demon god. He should hurry up and cultivate the primordial heavenly Tao to erase the traces left on him by the Dark Knight demon god. Instead, he recklessly cultivated the Tao of demon god and deepened the demon god brand in his body so that he could transform into a chaos demon god. Wasn't that just courting death? If the Dark Knight demon god had really fallen, there was nothing wrong with the Mahakala demon god's actions. This was a grand Tao. As long as he cultivated it step by step, he might be able to become the new Dark Knight demon god in the end and reach the highest realm. However, the problem was that the Dark Knight demon god was not dead. Cultivate his Tao, imitate his body, trace his origin. The Mahakala demon god had put everything on the Dark Knight demon god. He was simply making himself into a replica of the Dark Knight demon god. In this way, after the Dark Knight demon god broke the seal, it would be easy for him to take over the Mahakala demon god. In fact, the Dark Knight demon god did not even need to take the initiative to attack. He only needed to appear in front of the Mahakala demon god. Under the attraction of the same Tao, the Mahakala demon god would uncontrollably let go of everything to help the Dark Knight demon god and replace him. Those who imitate me live, those who imitate me die. That was how it was. Speaking of which, the Mahakala demon god had gotten what he wanted. Didn't he want to become the Dark Knight demon god? Now, he had completely integrated into the Dark Knight Great Tao and became a part of the Dark Knight demon god. He had achieved his dream. When the ancestor of the Great Tao was still alive, he cultivated his Tao and tried to replace his existence. Such behavior was destined to become someone else's wedding dress from the beginning. It was so stupid that it could not be any more stupid. He could be said to be the best at courting death in the Eldritch world. One had to know that Feng Zichen was worried about this. That was why he did not dare to completely turn himself into Pangu. His physical body, primordial spirit, and even true spirit were all transforming into Pangus. However, his foundation, the Tao that he cultivated, was completely different from Pangu's Tao. This difference created the essential difference between Feng Zichen and Pangu. Therefore, he did not need to worry that he would be inspired by Pangu and automatically become his incarnation. He was him. Feng Zichen of the human race. The one-of-a-kind Feng Zichen. Even if he added the word Pangu before his name, it only meant that he was from Pangu's lineage, not that he was a part of Pangu. If he wanted to reach the supreme realm and reach the end of the great Tao, he had to walk his own Tao. Following the Tao of others would save him effort, but he would never reach the peak of the great Tao. Not bad. But if you want to escape from my hands with this, it's far from enough. Seeing the two of them tear apart the long night, the dark night demon god was a little surprised, but that was all. Obviously, he did not think that Feng Zichen and Haoyan could escape from his hands if they worked together. You guys, have you seen the real eternal night? A slightly profound voice came from the dark night demon god's mouth. Then, without waiting for Feng Zichen and Haoyan to react, he flipped his hand, and the endless night rolled, giving birth to endless darkness that swept toward the two of them. The eternal night was the precursor of the immeasurable calamity. In the eternal night, all Daos were destroyed, and the laws did not exist. Everything would fall into despair, and living beings would disappear. It was obvious how terrifying it was. Danger. Extreme danger. Seeing the darkness surging toward them, Feng Zichen and Haoyan felt a chill all over their bodies, and they could not help but feel a great fear in their hearts. The darkness in front of them was enough to threaten their lives. We can't let it get close. At this moment, Feng Zichen and Haoyan made a decision almost at the same time. They could not let this attack fall. The stars in the sky, the light of the galaxy, the god of Pangu, all of you, strengthen me. Break. Terrified, Feng Zichen directly used his strongest method to attract the power of the boundless starry sky to strengthen himself. In an instant, Feng Zichen's aura skyrocketed again, and he broke through to the third level of the primordial chaos realm. At the same time, in the distant boundless starry sky, in a mysterious and unpredictable space, the god of Pangu's shadow, who was swallowing the chaos chi from the chaos, suddenly opened his eyes and disappeared. In a trance, Feng Zichen felt an extremely vast and mighty power suddenly descend and wrap around him. All kinds of mysterious trajectories flashed before his eyes, and the power of heaven and earth strengthened his body at this moment, raising his cultivation by another level, allowing him to enter the fourth level of the primordial chaos realm. This realm was just on par with the Dark Night Demon God. Unfortunately, this was not the boundless starry sky, and Zhouxing was far from recovering to his peak, so the support he could give to Feng Zichen was extremely limited. Otherwise, with the power of the stars in the sky, Feng Zichen's realm would at least be raised to the seventh level of the primordial chaos realm. In addition to the support of the god of Pangu, it was enough to let him erupt with power that was not inferior to the ninth level of the primordial chaos realm. If that was really the case, Feng Zichen did not need to be afraid of the Dark Night Demon God, as he could suppress him alone. Zhouxing painting, go. At this moment, as Feng Zichen's strength increased to the fourth level of the primordial chaos realm, and he activated the Zhouxing painting, the power that erupted was far from what it was before. Rumble. The star chart shook, and billions of stars appeared. Each star represented a world, and they were connected to each other, forming a vast and magnificent supreme realm. Painting sky splitting. As the stars rotated, billions of worlds shook together, and endless power poured out, forming a vast torrent that crushed everything and collided with the surging darkness. Bang! Terrifying power spread. The universe shook, and the universe roared. The great Tao was in chaos, and the divine chains of order were broken inch by inch. It was as if heaven and earth did not exist at this moment. When the fluctuations stopped, the bright starlight and the dark night were tightly entangled with each other. No one could do anything to the other, and they were in a stalemate. The night could not descend. The galaxy could not rush up. Feng Zichen and the Dark Night Demon God were in a stalemate. At this moment, Haoyan also erupted. The power of heaven and earth, add to my body. As soon as he finished speaking, the 33 heavens shook together, and an incomparably vast power descended from the sky and poured into Haoyan's body, directly raising his realm to the third level of the primordial chaos realm. And this was not the end. After the heaven realm, the entire eldritch world also shook. Next, in the eldritch world, countless famous mountains, great rivers, and blessed lands, regardless of whether they had an owner or not, all of them had to separate and pour into Haoyan's body. Even the nether realm, which had long been sealed, separated a trace of origin and added to Hao Yan's body the moment Hao Yan's voice fell. With a command, heaven and earth obeyed. This was the Celestial Emperor, the supreme ruler of the eldritch world. He was more powerful than a saint or even a Tao ancestor. At this moment, Hao Yan's cultivation directly entered the 5th level of the primordial chaos realm, surpassing Feng Zichen and the Dark Knight demon god in one fell swoop. This was also the reason why Hao Yan had just become the Celestial Emperor and had not established his prestige in the eldritch world, so his reputation was not prominent. Otherwise, with the support of the power of heaven and earth, Hao Yan's realm could be even stronger. As for how strong it was hard to say. In theory, the upper limit of the eldritch world was there, and the upper limit of the Celestial Emperor's strength was there. The Celestial Emperor represented the strongest in the eldritch world. How much strength could be exerted completely depended on the standard of the Celestial Emperor. If he was the true Lord of heaven and earth in the eldritch world, needless to say, he would definitely be the strongest in the eldritch world. If he was just a puppet and his power was completely taken over, then the strength he could exert would be at the level of an ordinary primordial chaos realm. No matter what, he was still a Celestial Emperor. Even if he was only a Celestial Emperor in name, he was still a Celestial Emperor. No matter how weak he could not be that weak. He was a peak that hundreds of millions of living beings could not reach. Therefore, in the future, how much of the Heavenly Emperor's strength Hao Tian could unleash would all depend on his means. Suppress. Hao Tian formed a seal with both hands, and the shadow of the 33 heavens appeared, turning into the shadow of a 33 heavens pagoda in midair. Endless creation chi hung down, spinning and suppressing toward the night sky. This was the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven, also known as the Tristrimsa Creation Pagoda. It was a primordial treasure that was born in the 33 heavens in the distant future. Now, Hao Yan, as the Celestial Emperor, used a supreme divine ability to summon a projection of himself in the future to suppress the enemy. There were 33 layers of his body, and each layer corresponded to a heavens. And in each layer of the heavens, a primordial spirit treasure was born to be used as a suppressor. This supreme treasure represented the luck of the heavenly realm, and it contained endless good fortune. A primordial treasure contained 33 primordial spirit treasures. Once it was born, it would be the top primordial treasure, second only to the 3 great heaven-opening treasures. This was a primordial treasure that belonged to the Celestial Emperor. Thinking about it, it made sense. As the ruler of the primordial world, how could the Celestial Emperor not have a primordial treasure in his hands? Moreover, with the richness of the heaven realm's origin, it should have given birth to a primordial treasure. Rumble. The primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven pressed down, as if the 33 heavens were pressing down. The creation chi was vast and mighty, shattering the eternal night. Buzz, 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 the eternal night shattered, and the chaos spirit treasure night suffered a backlash. After trembling for a while, it suddenly shrank, turning into a black flag and returning to the hands of the Dark Knight demon god. The power of this pagoda is so strong. Seeing this scene, Feng Zichen could not help but frown. Just the power displayed by this illusory figure was almost comparable to the heavenly cycle star map. If its main body was born, how powerful would it be? But shock was shock. Feng Zichen was actually not envious. Because he knew that this powerful primordial treasure, the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven, had no possibility of being born. The future would always be the future. No one would allow the birth of this primordial treasure. In short, if I can't get it, I won't let you get it either. As far as Feng Zichen knew, when Di Jun ruled the heaven realm, this pagoda was already in the process of being born. However, at that time, it was not called the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven, but the 9-layered Great Heaven Pagoda. However, it was a pity that he had not been born until Emperor Jun had fallen. After that, the 9 heavens shattered, and the 9-layered Great Heaven Pagoda died before it was born. After the birth of the 33 heavens, its shattered origin followed the heavens and recondensed, giving birth to a new primordial treasure, the primordial pagoda of Mi Luo Heaven. However, even Haotian would not be able to see the birth of this primordial treasure, because, in order to take revenge on Haotian, after the god investiture tribulation ended, the three pure ones moved the greater thousand worlds that they had opened in the chaos beyond the heavens, the grand pure land of Dachi Heaven, the jade pure land of Qingwei Heaven, and the pure land of Yuyu Heaven to the heaven realm to limit Haotian's power. As a result, the heaven realm changed again. From the 33 heavens to the 36 heavens. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.